It's Hotline League episode 181, and boy, there's just never a quiet week in LCS these days. We're going to be talking about several different things, but the second round robin is now complete. There's only one more round robin left in the LCS for these teams to figure stuff out, and by the way, if you looked at the total standings for these teams, you might have a different understanding than what it looks like if we talk about just the summer standings, which I'm sure we'll discuss as we get into it. But first off, thank you to Alienware and GameFuel for sponsoring the show. Secondly, my constant co-host, Mark Zimmerman. How's it going, Mark?
Going great. I think. I could be wrong.
How's your health issues?
So, no more pain in my stomach. That's good. Feeling all right. Still doing some workouts, so that's all recovered. We did the dive right before this. Normally, I start the dive in the morning, and then I kind of work throughout the whole day, but we put it after the meeting, so like I'm coming right off the dive. So like on the one hand, I feel juiced, but on the other hand, I might crash. Okay. But on the other hand, normally I'm tired from like 12 hours. So
well, the great news is you've got GameFuel, so you'll be able to not worry about crashing later on. Regardless, it's good. Yeah. So are you guys going to be filming? I could have asked Kobe this because he left kind of late in the day to film it. Are you guys doing the dive later now in the day?
I am uncertain. They gave me Ashley asked me this question too, and they gave me a reason in Slack why we were doing this, but I forgot it.
Well, I hope
I think it's going to be constant.
I hope that it's later because I always I feel like sometimes when you guys film so early on Mondays, it's tough to Hotline League benefits a lot because we can address things that happened, much like the CLG stuff on the show that the dive cannot. And I always want to hear you guys' opinions on the dive as well because I don't know. Anyway, other than wait, did we figure out the health issues though?
Yeah, you weren't even listening to me. I said I'm okay.
I got distracted by the dive stuff afterwards, and so we kind of flew past that. And then you talked about the dive stuff, and I was just worried because you kept bringing it up. Did you get very many good medical diagnoses from our audience?
Some people reached out, which I appreciate, but honestly, there's like no fucking way to medically diagnose me from like a random Twitch rant where I'm not like really saying everything clearly. So some people were like, I got a lot of people with a lot of different ideas, and in classic me fashion, I just did nothing about it until I felt better.
DeMonte in chat says your stomach hurts or what, bro? What's wrong with Mark? He's fine. Everything's fine. We're gonna
I have a hernia, but I put my intestines back in and just kind of got over it.
All right.
You brushed that off? All right.
Raz, welcome back to the show. It's been too long.
Yes, it has been.
That was not convincing at all. You're like, yeah.
Well, look, all I'm saying is I must be better. I'm like, in comparison to Mark, who has a hernia.
Do better than what? You're as a guest on the show?
I'm fantastic. I mean, like, I'm good. Life is all right, Travis. Yeah. You know how it is. Yeah. I don't do anything with my life.
Yeah. Somebody in chat says, "Hey, Mastermind to DeMonte." I completely forgot. This is the funny thing: is like something happening on Monday is so much worse than something happening on like Thursday or Friday, because this weekend, as I was watching Kobe, my wonderful roommate, his first episode of Mastermind or Masterminds, I don't know if it's plural or not. I was like, oh, I want to talk about this on the show, and then I've completely forgot about it because like all the CLG stuff has just purged it all out of my brain. So somebody says it's plural. Masterminds. It's just a very interesting thing.
It's funny as hell. I love that show. So I only saw the first episode, and it was pretty damn good. What's your opinion?
I liked it after. So I think it should be shorter, and they should trim down the beginning because the first 10 minutes was them just talking about Rakan mid. I told Kobe this too. But I think the first 10 minutes of them was just them talking about Rakan mid, and I was like, this is... And just cuts between the two. It wasn't like we're concocting our plan or anything like that. It was just kind of a general discussion. I'm like, get in. And once they sat down at their chairs and at the desks and the computer and started like actually playing, I was like, oh, this is good. This is really great. It felt a lot more natural and stuff. So I'm curious to see how this week's episode goes because I'm sure they're going to keep iterating on it and make it awesome.
I liked it a lot, minus the part where DeMonte spoke.
There it is.
They should just
He said
replace him with Solo. Every time Solo spoke, I laughed. Every time DeMonte spoke, I cringed.
Gotcha. Well, I'm sure he appreciates that. Anyway,
I don't think we need callers at this point. I feel like we already have like we have Twitch chat in the box, in Mark's box.
Great. Well,
I wonder if DeMonte was saying he had appendicitis. I wonder if I have appendicitis. I always have like a swollen feeling in the right side of my abdomen.
Isn't that a thing where like it would at some point in time it would become really bad?
Well, he said he had it for 1.5 years, and I've had this since I was 19. So like maybe he just diagnosed me correctly.
Jesus.
This is a reoccurring problem?
No, the thing from last week was not reoccurring, but the discomfort pressure on the right side is a pretty constant thing.
You should have you ever gone to a doctor about this stuff?
Yep.
Okay.
What the hell did they say? Just walk it off or what?
They were like, did some kind of scan. I think it was ultrasound or something. They were looking for something.
Oh my God.
I wasn't pregnant.
God, I hope
yeah.
this conversation ages fine, because if it's in like 4 months from now and like Mark is in the emergency room after having emergency surgery, I'm gonna have to hit up Alienware and Gamefeel and be like, listen, that reporting we did for that episode, it's actually gotten 10 times the views because people went back and saw the clip of Mark talking about it. No, but Raz, sorry, we were talking about you and we got a little distracted. What have you been up to lately? You and I have not even chatted since you commentated my Wild Rift loss.
True.
I just realized I hadn't talked to you in the past month or so. But how have you been? What have you been doing? How's life been?
It's been fun. I've been focusing mostly on the work. That's what I always do. So, I always feel bad because on my days off, I don't. It's either that I'm like, okay, I'm insanely exhausted, so I do nothing except for play games, or I just like continue to watch more League.
Well,
so it's like it's been the usual.
We're gonna get into it in a second, but I just into the show. But I just want to touch on this because it's always nice to banter with people in the beginning. You're one of the few people I know besides myself that plays video games that are not like League of Legends, Path of Exile, or World of Warcraft. It's like you and me and Zale, I think, are the only ones that play anything else. So,
so actually, that you just opened up. I forgot of this entirely. I've been just straight cramming on Persona 4. Because just for people out there that don't know or hasn't watched my stream recently, like I played Persona 4 probably like 3-4 times, and I would get to a certain dungeon like hours and upon hours, like an 8-bit dungeon for people that played the game, and then I'd either lose my Vita, that was once on the bus, that was gone, or I'd my PC would get reformatted in some way. Like I've played this game multiple times and I've never finished it. So I've been on PC going in on it.
I thought it was console
PC.
Only.
It's on Steam. I don't know when it came on Steam. Probably fairly recently. So it's been a lot of fun. I've been having fun with that one.
I'm adding it to my wish list. Does it have the? Oh wait, Persona 4. There's a new Persona that I was thinking of.
Before Persona 5 came out like 3 years ago.
Okay. Maybe I was thinking of Persona.
So my plan is to play Persona 4, 5, and 3 at some point. It's going to be long as fuck. Those games are just ridiculous. I've been also playing Guilty Gear Strive, so that's been a lot of fun on my end. But like that was a while back since I played that. So
nice. Well, anyway, I
started playing Final Fantasy 14 before all the WoW kiddies quit because WoW sucks.
Wait, you were Mark?
It is.
Yeah. Well,
I thought Ashley was, and then did she drag you into it? Is that what happened?
Yeah, and then she stopped playing, and now I'm just addicted to an MMO.
Oh, really? Okay. I didn't. You and I haven't talked about this. Yeah, it's actually so crazy. I was just reading an article about how Final Fantasy 14 is like hard popping off right now, and you can't actually even. It's like difficult to find a server to create a character on. Like you have to log on late at night to create a character because it's just going so insane with like Asmongold, all the WoW people, everything pushing for it. I've been thinking about playing it. I've been talking to some friends who play it because obviously I've played forever.
A pretty filthy casual, just like playing through the main story quest slowly and being an idiot.
No, that's what you're supposed to do. That's what everybody says, is that like the WoW people that get into it and are like, I just got to rush through to get to the end game so I can raid. Like that is the way WoW works, but supposedly in Final Fantasy it is really supposed to be about the journey before the destination.
Good, but I skip every single cutscene and I put a podcast on. I listen to a story I actually want to listen to while I play this game instead of listen to its story.
I've quit playing that game 2 times because the first like certain levels, the beginning of this game is really fucking boring. Final Fantasy 14 on like
Yeah,
rough,
there's a bit where you're just like they're like talk to this person, do this shit. You don't need to do any of that. You just need to do the main story quest. Just don't do anything but the main story quest.
All right.
good
Well,
lesson. Yeah.
the stream is not sponsored by Final Fantasy 14, so we're going to move on and talk about League of Legends. I'm going to admit I was stalling. We were talking about this a bit beforehand. I got this bunch of CLG drama today, and like we'll talk about it. I don't want it to take over the show and the whole episode to be about it. But it'll be, I'm sure, a significant part of it. In fact, I think we're getting a call at 7:45 from XSojin, who talked a little bit about his experience with MSG today on Twitter. But man, it is just exhausting. This team is like, if you think about it, and I get it, like, because I wish that they were as good as they used to be in terms of like as a brand and as a presence and all that. Especially all of us old boomers remember how vital to LCS and even before LCS CLG was. So it's sad to see where it's gotten. But it's just frustrating because I'm like, this team has ultimately just been like a mid to bottom tier team for years. I think they had one split where they did okay. And we're just constantly talking about them. And it's just exhausting because there's never anything new to talk. It's just like MSG sucks. And they need to figure that
whether
shit
you
out.
like it or not, it's CLG themed. We got blue colors over here. I got the blue juice right here.
Yes.
I'm chilling.
Yes.
I'm ready to talk about it.
I'm going to assume that's
fueled
a
up.
Mountain Dew product, as our show is sponsored
no
by Mountain
idea.
Dew Game Fuel.
Oh, there we go then.
Yes, exactly. Mark,
So should I
there you go.
pull a CLG caller before Matt gets here, or should we keep Matt on for the CLG caller?
You mean XSojin? I think we should talk separately to XSojin, and then if he wants to stick around for a CLG caller, that sounds good to me. I think that's the way we do
So
it.
I won't pull one before him.
Yeah, well, you can pull one. I mean, we can just talk about sort of our own opinions on everything for the next 10 minutes or so, and then maybe XSojin will be around to do it. I don't know if he's in the chat yet, but maybe he'll let us know. Maybe he can pop on a little earlier than we originally discussed. But so obviously there's the CLG news. Then there's also EG is continuing to pop off. 100T. Everybody was on like the 100T hype train, and that they went 1 and 2 this past
1 and
weekend?
2.
So right
They went
now,
1 and 2. TSM went 1 and 2. FlyQuest Academy went 3-0. Golden Guardians went 2-1. Licorice looks good. FlyQuest Academy are cool.
Yep.
Yep.
Mark's naming it all off for me. I appreciate that. This week on Run It, we're going to actually do a who's actually good in the top 5 teams, because right now 2 round robins down, 1 more to go. 100T 2-game lead. TSM and EG tied for second. TL 2 games behind them, and Cloud9 at 5th. They're 9 and 9, and then everybody else behind
Evil
them.
geniuses.
So.
If we're taking just the summer split, tied for second with TSM.
Yes. Thank you for pointing that out. That it is just the summer split that I'm talking about. But I think that's what's really interesting. It's obviously it's much more valuable to look at the summer split rankings than as we're looking at what teams need to do and where they need to be power wise ahead of playoffs. So that's why I'm sort of focusing on those numbers right now. Anyway, there was that. Was there anything else from this past week that I'm not thinking of besides the CLG stuff and all the stuff Mark just mentioned?
As Empire called out, there was the Immortals Dardock.
Oh, yes.
But I don't know if there's much to say there other than like.
I mean, I think
we'll
maybe if somebody wants to call and have a take on that, I think that makes sense.
At beginning of the Friday was when we announced that it was going to be in the summer finals.
Yes.
It was going to have
Jersey.
Yes. New Jersey.
Newark, New Jersey.
I'm actually so excited for that. That'll be the first work travel that I've done in like close to 2 years. I think the last thing before then was like All Stars 2019 in Vegas. So, I'm really excited about that. Actually, I'm hopeful that we get a ton of people to come out. Mark, what are you doing back there? What's happening?
We just figured I'd try and shake things up. You know, How
You're
come
out
no
of-
one films podcasts from far away? Why is everyone so fucking close to their cameras? Why is everything a close-up single?
I
Why
have
can't we
such
get
a
some
short cord. That's
difference
my
of
problem.
shots? Huh?
This. Oh yeah, we
The
need to start moving
cinematography
everything.
in podcasts fucking sucks. Everything's a oneer.
Okay. Well,
I don't know what we're doing. All right, I'm waiting for us to
we
need
lost
me to be
Raz.
close.
Well, I was going to ask. Raz can't even hear us now. Mark, what do you think of the Licorice and FlyQuest Golden Guardian stuff?
So there's actually a lot to talk about here. I went over a lot of it on the dive, but I still felt like I couldn't get all of it out because there's so many angles to talk about FlyQuest Academy. There is the actual players who all have, I think, pretty compelling storylines. Every single one of them, I think, has something that's like pretty cool to latch onto. I think there's the actual like analysis of the team and how they play and stuff like that, which is pretty cool to talk about because they like people were memeing the Reddit comment that was like they play kind of like an LPL team, but like honestly, that's not the worst comparison. Obviously, not in terms of skill, but like they just go for plays. They're sometimes whack as fuck, and sometimes they work out, and they're like not always doing the most intelligent thing. Then there's the like trade part of it where both they look a lot better and Licorice looks a lot better. You can talk about the importance of teamwork and synergy and motivation and like how all those things can like make players look much worse or better than they really are. And then there's also the angle of like using Academy actually. And so there's so many things to actually talk about with around the FlyQuest move.
Yeah, I actually think all that stuff to me is actually the most interesting stuff out of this past week. I mean, the fact that on Friday the games were CLG beating TSM, FlyQuest Academy beating Cloud9, Golden Guardians beating 100 Thieves. Like that was a bizarre start to the weekend, and especially just with the fact that you had the Licorice and the FlyQuest Academy stuff going on. It's been fascinating. I'm sure we're going to get a ton of calls on it, but Raz, what do you think of all that?
Yeah, there's a lot to cover. It's a pretty big lesson to like the coaching staff and like and management, I suppose, for FlyQuest. They made the right decision in the end of bringing what happened to Academy up, but like the system of course like wasn't working for spring and summer, and I didn't really get like I feel like my biggest thing when it comes to teams that are developing or growing is like you would be able to see like growing concepts or something that they're working on. Like for Golden Guardians is like, oh, their dives are much cleaner, like they're set up to, and the actual dives that they were having in the early games are like, oh, this is something you can tell they were working on. Or like set up around like dragons or something. With FlyQuest, my God, every week was something different. There's like, oh shit, they don't even. It's like it felt like there's zero consistency. It was always like very much like their comps were changing, fair, like that'll happen. But it felt like there was nothing conceptually in the game that I feel like would stay in from week to week. And their jungle was not working consistently with their support or mid lane. It felt like they were always on different pages. So like it was just a breath of fresh air to see that their academy team was the opposite, and that NXI was like constantly working with triple, setting up for plays, working with diamond, like going topside, like that dive topside that NXI had was like really well done. So like I just hope to see more of that shit because that's something that will actually create consistency within the team.
So we talked about the FlyQuest side. On the Golden Guardian side, actually Raz, Mark is distracted, I think. What did you think of the TSM Golden Guardians game? How did Golden Guardians look there? Because obviously we'll talk about the wins that they had, but what did you think of that loss? Because sometimes that stuff can be more interesting or important.
I kind of forgot a lot about the later portions of the game. I'd have to refresh my mind. But like even the solo kill that people would give credit for Licorice, like actually worked pretty poorly for him because he lost the full wave. And then he got killed by the jungler. So the jungler gets the kill. He loses the wave, so he's behind in experience and all that. So I was like, even that, I felt like people took that as like, oh, he did, worked really fucking well for him. But that was not the case, actually. But I don't actually remember that game in particular. I'd have to look back at it. But yeah, I mean,
Mark,
it was like, wise.
TSM, I mean, like, I can't speak. Licorice played well in the early game. I mean, I know that you're talking about the wave not being great, but he still was able to make a couple plays happen. So the Trundle was in a good spot, but their bot lane was getting blasted, if I remember. I think I think they had a Felios. I can't remember, but they were crushing, and so they actually fell behind like 3,000 or 4,000 gold. And then there was like a play or two where Golden Guardians looked like they were going to get back into the game, despite being behind a couple thousand gold. Like they actually had pressure a little bit, and like
Yeah.
despite being down 4,000 gold, they could like walk up and get vision and things. And then they did something. I can't remember what they did, but they just fucking entered the game immediately after. They looked like they were back in on it.
Oh, I remember now. Oh god, this was a horrific early game. Because like even okay
Yeah.
now, yeah. Because like even after he came back, after Trundle TP back or like came back to the lane, he actually just got no, like Iconic got dove. They lost turret, and then the TP play bot lane. Yeah, early game was pretty bad for Golden Guardians, but they still looked like they were in it. But yeah, the team still looked pretty like they were still alive, which is nice to see for a team if they're that far behind early on in the game.
I mean,
Yeah.
what's crazy to me is, and I think people kind of forget about this, Licorice found out Monday morning Golden Guardians was interested in him. By the end of the day, had, like, I guess negotiated with them, transferred and renewed his contract, and was in scrims on Tuesday, did 3 days of scrims with this team, and then Golden Guardians comes in and goes 2-1. With like a very, against 100 Thieves, TSM was their loss, and Team Liquid. Like, this was not the like easy week for them, So I just think it's fascinating. One thing I forgot to mention that was some drama that I think he's in the chat right now, but Peter Dunn and his deleted tweet. I don't know, Mark. Did you see this? Raz is reacting.
Well, when he responded to
I
this fan
remember.
about like strategy stuff.
No. Peter came out and said, EG coach for those that don't know, and was like, normally I don't weigh on these things, but it's like really bad that Licorice got player of the week over Danny or Ignar, who should have definitely had it. You didn't see this? It was up for a little bit and then he deleted it.
I follow too many fucking people. I need to actually unfollow because like I miss the good shit too frequently.
Yeah. And so he came out and was very unhappy about that. And it sparked, I think, some conversation. Freak and Azale, I think, both replied to him with reasoning as to why they felt like it made sense for it to be Licorice over Danny or Ignar. But that was also very fun to follow for about the 30 minutes after LCS yesterday. And I thought maybe we'd bring
The problem is EG need to actually beat some good teams in order to get it. Immortals, 100 Thieves, and C9. They got to beat the Golden Guardians. They got to beat FlyQuest. They got to beat the good teams. All right, beating these shitters. Of course, you're not gonna get it.
He's in the chat right now. He says no comment. So we'll see.
All
We'll
right.
see if you can bait him out.
I will say, I mean, like, here's the thing: you got a lot of players who are actually competing for this type of shit. Obviously, Licorice had a great tweet. I don't really care about like the narrative discussion. I don't think it was a narrative-based thing. Licorice just definitely played well in the 3 of his games. Ignar and Danny fucking smurfed. Like that was true as well. I'm not gonna say who I voted for. Like you can probably get a good hint on how I talk about him. Oh god, now I can't say it because now people would know who I vote
I
for.
don't have to say anything. I can just meme it all because I wasn't a part of the voting this week. I wasn't on Sunday.
All right, fuck it. I voted Ignar. But anyway.
Oh my God, you're gonna throw the whole broadcast into the bus,
All right,
Raz.
it doesn't matter. No one else is gonna respond. It's completely fine. But it's like at the end of the day, like I support people who voted well. I can understand like people on that team saying that, hey, my own guy performed really well, and like sure that's focusing. They're putting 100% of their focus on those players. So like I can understand being an advocate for that. And I think there are a lot of people who are out there that will support Danny and Ignar. And I know that based on how they're playing, they'll probably, be in contention the next week as well. But Licorice performed really fucking well. So I don't want to take it away from him.
You guys are lucky Triple didn't get it. If I was there, I would have beaten up everyone who didn't want to give it to Triple, even though his third game was pretty whatever.
Yeah, Triple and NXI also performed really well. It was literally like this was probably one of the rare weeks where there were individuals that just literally performed well throughout the week. They didn't have like a spotty game as you'd usually have. Like for instance, FBI last week, a few weeks ago, I don't remember which week, that had the Lee Sin game that wasn't really the best, but the 2 games before that, he just like knocked it out of the park. Then Abadai, like I feel like every MVP had that one kind of okay game. But in this week, we had literally people who just performed well throughout the full week versus like top competition. So,
Oh, what were you gonna say, Mark?
No, nothing. Someone in the Twitch chat said the same thing I was gonna say. I felt like this is a weird week because there were a lot of candidates that you could realistically give it to.
Yeah, I am. I don't know. I think it's just funny. I just to tease Peter a little bit. I think it's the second tweet in the past month or so that he's regretted putting out there, because he also had the tweet about the challenges for NA or something that he tweeted it, went to sleep. The classic mistake, isn't it? He's from Europe. I understand why he doesn't get it, but you can't tweet something about North America on the international stage or the way international stuff works before you're going to sleep in North America, because that's when Europe wakes up and it goes on Reddit, and then you wake up to a lot of angry messages in the morning, which I think is funny.
When you said Peter, you're talking about Doublelift for the licorice solo
Peter
tweet.
Dunn.
The licorice solo tweet was also great.
I remember this.
What's
Why am I
that?
just not seeing good shit on Twitter? What's going
Raz,
on
what
here?
are you doing?
Raz, open your fucking Twitter.
Raz, I feel
Oh
like you
my
spend all your
God.
time on Twitter and you're missing these great things. So when Golden Guardians announced their change, the roster change, Doublelift tweeted something like -solo plus licorice LOL dogshit org or something, and then Licorice goes out, gets player of the week, leads Golden Guardians to 2 upsets. I mean, to be fair to Peter, he was not the only person I think who had. I don't know how many people thought dogshit.org when they saw it, but a lot of people thought that the roster change was odd. But it certainly feels like Golden Guardians and Licorice were able to prove him and some of the other haters wrong. So I don't know. I thought that a lot of people were memeing that as well. It's funny. So okay,
Hilarious.
Yeah, at least he kept. Hey, that Peter kept his. Wait, did he keep his tweet up? Did
yes.
Doublelift keep that tweet?
I don't know if
There we
Peter's
go.
ever deleted.
Gotta keep your
tweet.
tweets up, Peter
Yeah.
Dunn. You got to keep your tweet up. All I'm saying, that wasn't even that bad of a tweet. You're holding. People are gonna play the broadcast. Maybe off that, fine. That's completely fine. But you're out there protecting your own. I think it's completely fine.
Yeah. All right. Looks like XSojin is probably here. XSojin, if you're, I think somebody said that I saw you in the chat or something like that. So if you are here, feel free to pop into one of the pleb calls, and we'll pull you in to talk a little bit about your tweets earlier today. Just let me know when you are in the chat, and we'll pull you.
I'm looking. I see people coming and going in the chat, and every time I see it bounce, I'm like, "Is that him?"
Well, while we wait for him, Mark, we haven't done this in a while, and I saw some people asking about it. I think we have some folks that may be new here because of the CLG stuff. But do you want to explain how the show works?
Yeah, if you've never seen the show before and you want to come on and give us your best diss track to CLG, go ahead and join up the Discord that I'm spamming in Twitch chat right now. Once you get there, go ahead and join Pleb Calls or Pleb Calls 2 voice channels. Mute your microphone when you get there, no mouth breathers. And then in the Pleb Topics text channel up above, that's where you're going to write what your take is. I'll be reading that, looking for good ones. I'll pull a couple right out the gate to make sure I have some people held, but then otherwise I'll usually keep reading it over the course of the night, pulling people. You'll hang out in the waiting room until it's your turn. Then we'll do a quick mic check, make sure you sound okay, then pull you into the on-air to tell us about how much you hate CLG.
Jesus. Please give us takes that are not just how much you hate CLG. They deserve a lot of criticism, but we just finished the second round robin. There's so much more to talk about right now in the league, but I'm sure we'll talk about it. Speaking of talking about it, Sojin's waiting in the waiting room, Mark, if you want to go check his audio really quickly and then pull him in.
He's already out there. On the move.
By the way, if you are a sub, thank you for being a sub. You can sync your Twitch stuff with Discord in order to make sure you get access to the subtopics channel, which is where you will be able to also put your takes. It moves a little slower sometimes on the pleb topic stuff. All right, XSojin is here. Matt, first off, is it Matt or Sojin? What do you want to go by?
You can call me Matt. You can call me Sojin. The X kind of adds a little extra, so I don't think you have to do the X.
Okay. Former what? So, do you want to introduce yourself in terms of what your history with CLG is?
Yeah, sure. I'm former academy head coach and assistant coach for the LCS team.
All right. And you also recently coached a different team. Which team was that?
I did Sola Fide, the one that did not get paid, and I would like to point out for you that they just got verified on their Twitter, but we are still not paid our money. So just gonna
Oh,
throw that one out there
nice.
for y'all.
Okay, which team would you rather work for if you had to go back to what are the others, CLG or Solafide?
I mean, I definitely go back to CLG because I could get paid, right?
Yeah, pay
That's at
rent.
least a little bit better.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Streets or no streets, I'm gonna go with no streets, Travis.
Okay. Okay. Well, okay. So you had kind of a Twitter pop off today, talking about the CLG stuff and MSG, and so it's good to have you on because I think there's a lot of speculation from people outside. Certainly, I've speculated, and Mark and others have speculated, but what. Do you think that it is MSG that is exclusively holding back the org from finding competitive success? I mean, what is actually going on there?
But let me say this before we get started.
Sure.
MSG certainly saved CLG, which seemed like imminent doom on their end. They came in when they needed them the most, when LCS was getting started and everyone was getting these kind of like backings from other organizations and stuff like that, and CLG needed one drastically, and they got that with MSG. So I'm just gonna lay that out there, like they did what they had to do and they saved them from just non-existing, right? But I do think they kind of stopped CLG from being what it could be. I think there's a lot with what the teams in terms of like the staff and the players are limited to. And it's just kind of like playing another game while you're also playing League of Legends at the same time.
Because you're trying. It
So
sounds like you're saying you have to kind of manage up as well while managing the team.
yeah, you kind of gotta like make sure that MSG is happy, but MSG's, how do I put this?
You don't work for the
Uh,
team no more.
you-
Let him get that fire.
just answer me more questions, Travis.
Okay,
It's as vague as possible.
Okay.
Like,
Okay. Well,
MSG,
here's a question
be
for
more
you.
specific with me.
Yeah. So one of the things that you mentioned here on the list, which was really surprising to me,
hmm
was you said players are in constant fear for their jobs because MSG 1 week can just request a roster swap. So, like, that's really interesting to me because you don't really generally have a lot of situations where like the parent company can come in and be like, we're making a roster swap. So I don't know if you could expand a
Okay,
little
yeah.
bit on that. Was that like, and when you say
So,
MSG, sorry, go ahead.
okay, yeah. I can expand on that. So essentially, mm, we kind of like tie things in our reports back to MSG as normal. I would assume all the other teams do that to like their whoever owns them. And through these, I have experienced moments where it's like they put the pressure on you to do something about it. Um, and if you don't, then it's like you're, I mean, you kind of get the gist, right? I've already said it. People are scared for their jobs. They're, in my opinion at least, they're constantly creating an environment where both the staff is scared for their jobs, and that trickles down into the players who are scared for their jobs. And I've had people come and like talk about the argument like these are professional players, like they should be scared for their jobs. Like this is pretty much like a very competitive sport, but I think people forget to realize the separation between creating a healthy environment to where your players want to come. They want to come learn. They're not scared for like what the week will hold. That if their practice is terrible, then it's going to set the mood for like the rest of the games. Those are like two completely separate things that need to be established. And I believe that MSG has a lot of faults within their systems that kind of cause that environment to occur.
Gotcha. So it's kind of a situation where it's not a formal like, hey, you need to bench this person, but it's kind of like,
It's like
all
you
right,
need
you
to
guys
make
have been losing a
changes.
ton. What are
Mhm.
you going to do about it? Type thing.
Yeah, that
Okay.
type of,
Like you should make changes. What
Oh.
changes are you making or something?
yeah.
I mean, to read between the lines, I remember the Tony, the Zix lull when he got let go from CLG. It felt like, if I remember that it was like a lot of people, it felt like wanted to see CLG make roster moves or something. That was the time. I mean, you don't need to confirm or deny this happened, but that's one instance where I can remember. I think he got fired or let go or whatever, and then like immediately there were roster moves. So reading between the lines, it feels like, wonder if that was an instance.
So that's another problem that stems is you're saying I don't need to answer, but I actually don't have too much information on that. A lot of the information that streamlines from MSG downwards is very vague. I don't think I've ever actually spoken to a specific person that's not like already within the facility from MSG, in like separate calls or meetings or anything else. It's all streamlined through like one or two people. The system's kind of like changed over time, so it's like one or two depending on the year. And that's like just another issue is that they're not very transparent. The players will be very transparent about like what's working, what's not working. But it seems like you're kind of screaming into a void. There's no real feedback loop, or it's just kind of like them saying okay and then nothing happening. You know, it's the same thing.
So
There's nothing else for you.
one of the things that people mention on Reddit, and I kind of agree with this, is like I think a lot of folks outside, and even myself knowing a little bit of like the structure there, don't really know when people say like, oh, MSG sucks or MSG is the problem, where that line is delineated. So I know like you kind of have, it feels to me from the outside that you have CLG staff, and then previously you had like Nick Allen, who was head of CLG, and then Dan Fleeter came in and was head of CLG after that. Last week, hilariously, right before this stuff, or ironically, Greg Kim from EG goes over and is now the head of CLG. So do you think that the issues, you know, where does MSG start and CLG ends? Does it start at the head of CLG, or is it like the people above them and like whoever's running CLG is just in like the world's toughest spot because they have to deal with MSG?
So after Nick, it wasn't just Dan, it was Matt, and then they transitioned Dan in to help with Matt to separate two different things.
Gotcha.
There have been like a couple iterations, and I think Summer Scott took over after Matt Trinity had left,
Yes.
and Toffel had also taken over. And I think at this point, there's been a couple people that have tried to lead. I think I've had my experience with a good amount of them, but it still feels like it's just coming from the top. It has nothing to do with the actual people within the facility organizing it. It's like you'll have like deliverables promised that don't seem to go through, or you'll have things requested in terms of like training or like things that are kind of like useless, and it kind of falls on deaf's ear. Not only that, it feels like their trust is kind of like on and off too. So there's a lot of
Gotcha.
history behind it. It's really back and forth, honestly, and you can't have an organization kind of like putting their foot down every now and then and kind of like shifting the course on what your coaches or your staff are trying to build.
So
Speaking of
that
it's
oh, go
pretty
ahead.
good. I have a question actually here. So coming in as a head coach for the academy team and also working as assistant for the main team, and talking about like the power that they've had kind of being big and all that, have they had control over just like what roster, like who you can and cannot have in off season, and have they made like that feedback very clear?
I have had at one point a player that we were gonna get that they said we couldn't acquire, but that was for different reasons. But generally, in terms of selecting players in the off season, to my knowledge, it's kind of like the players are kind of drafted up and presented to the coaches, and it's like these are your players, and then the goal for the year is it. There, it's like unclear because they'll tell you the goal will be like we want 5 rookies, and we want you to train all the rookies after just coming off of like a spring a split with like Tuesday and everybody else that have been like veterans. And it's like okay, you'll get feedback on what you need, or my honest feedback on like what's needed to get the academy structure built up so you can get these rookies that they want. But it's like sorry, the best we can do is like this.
And is this
And
is like the management that's doing this, or this MSG that's drafting the players?
that's what I would like to know. And I'm telling you, I don't really have full context on what information is given to MSG, what is said back downwards, and then what is given to us. It's more like here's your pieces, kind of like play, and then I'm guessing whether or not, you know, who said what. But at this point, it's like I'm just gonna do my job the best I can, and when you're in the moment, you don't really think too hard on it or reflect too hard because you're too busy within the season focusing on 80 different other things.
Okay, so one of the things that has come out of today is like Tafo has been receiving a lot of criticism and people calling for him to be terminated or whatever.
Of course, I think he's the easiest target.
Yes. And so I was going to ask you, given the context that you have about the organization, you know, he's obviously like the visible face of all this stuff. Do you think he is the issue? Do you think it's MSG? Is it some combination? Like where do you think people should feel frustrated with CLG?
Sorry for cutting you off.
No, you're
constantly,
good.
Travis.
You're good.
I don't think Tafo should take the full blame. I think Tafo was put in. So let me put it this way: Tafo has done other stuff besides GM for us. Everything that he's done a wonderful job. I think Tafo's a really smart person. He's really like honest and he's really nice and he really cares about the players. He was kind of put into a position, a non-winning position already, right? We come off the year losing Irene. We lost PoE. Our whole thing is being restructured. It's his first time putting together a team. Crown doesn't work out. Halfway through, we got to get rid of Crown. There's like a lot of issues leading into his initial year. I had talked about visas. I think I had 2 years in a row where I get players that come in like a month or 2 months later. And I've had subs. Benji, the current academy coach, was definitely a sub for us for like a very long time. There's just like a bunch of issues that he has to tackle all at once, and he's not really set up for success. It's just kind of learn as you go. Give us the reports. I hope everything works out, is what it feels like.
Yeah. Gotcha. Mark, I don't know if you have a question or because it seems like you were about to say something. Otherwise, we can maybe hop into a call with a CLG person or caller if somebody has something.
No, I was yelling about cutting you off more often and how I appreciate that.
I was about to, you know what? I held myself back.
Yeah.
I did not. If you want, I can grab a caller.
Okay, so Matt, XSojin, I was going to ask you, do you want to stick around for a caller talking about some of the CLG stuff? I don't know how comfortable you are.
That's fine by me.
Okay, cool.
I'm not doing
This
much.
call is more about the video, I'm pretty sure, and what it says about the management than it is about specific. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out
together.
as we
That's
go.
what this is.
Very good. Well, let's move on to our first caller, and Mark's off to grab them. Thank you to IMZ Ginger for the gifted month to Sojin. I'm sure he'll appreciate that. So many
Thank
things
you.
for the 38 months. John G365 for the 19, Sandy Toes for the 15, Gavo 265, Pilgrim Panda, Kensicht, Fisham Olsen for 1 year. I love you chat for 43. We'll get some more in a second, but our first caller is here, WardenWinter, the mod god himself. Where are you calling from?
Warden.
Oh, that's the other Warden.
That's Winter's Ward. God damn it. How do you not
You don't even know the people who help you out.
know his name?
You owe
I feel
him
so
something.
hurt.
You owe both of them something.
WardenWinter, where are you calling from?
State College, Pennsylvania, and I will be at LCS finals this year.
Nice. Well, I will apologize in person if you remind me. What do you want to talk about on the show?
So I had a take that the video and how they did it, like not just that they released the video, but how they delivered the information to the players, kind of shows a lack of competence from the CLG management there, and kind of a lack of key leadership skills that they really need to be able to succeed.
Gotcha. Do you want to explain a little bit?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things for effective leadership is to have effective communication, and to communicate effectively, you need to be clear. And when they talked about how benching the players, or not benching, it was a possibility of roster swaps, I think was the words, and kind of couched in this language of, I still love you guys, don't worry, like, it's just not clear what the players should be taking out of it or what is actually going to be happening next. And so it's not clear anywhere what the next steps are for the org or for players or kind of from the management.
So all right, how I want to phrase this. The interesting thing to me is I actually think that video, fans really want transparency. That was a terrible way to go about it. If you stuck that video into a 20 or 30 minute long documentary that you release later on, I'm hoping Mark is agreeing with me here, then you are, with his strong gestures, then you are actually, then it's actually, It's actually much better. And like it might feel bad, but if you've got like a narrative and you're revealing sort of like these behind the scenes tough moments, and it's not just this like short little clip, like maybe you saw all the buildup of it. Maybe beforehand there was context on like, we really need to figure this stuff out. We need to improve. We need to whatever. You have some sort of context rather than just like, here's a Bud Light clip on Twitter that we've clipped for our sponsor of us telling our players that some of them are going to get benched soon. That like that I think is the biggest issue to me, is like I think there's a way to show these behind the scenes moments, and I'm curious if Matt just thinks I'm completely off my rocker here, because I know that he, or XSojin, because I know he's coming from the coaching side and he works with players, but like I think there's a way to do this and to show this with tact, and the way that they just did it I think is the issue, more than just like a situation where maybe you should never show that conversation in any way, shape, or form.
So I would love to take this.
Sure.
It's literally what we just talked about, is that transparency is a non-factor throughout not only the coaching like area or like the players, but I believe it's kind of through their content that they make and their social team and everything else. You really have like a handful of people at the CLG offices running tons of things, and I don't know if anyone really cares or knows, but I've been doing more socials, kind of transferred over, trying to test out new things with C9 and kind of seeing their processes and how things run. And it's just like a completely different world. You have people taking on like 3-4 man jobs, and you're expecting like the content team to pump out all these pieces when they probably have like sponsored deliverables that they have to do, and they have to take care of all of that and plan that. And it's only like, I don't know how many people they have now, but when I was there, it was really like only like 3 people kind of handling content. Socials was like 1 person, and everyone kind of had their hands in like everything pretty much. And I've already touched on like on my tweets, Slop Dog Ronnie, team mom manager, literally 1v9ing the whole CLG office along with Cook Andrews, making sure all the players are good, cooking meals for them, going to the actual houses and doing things, fixing things. Like, these dudes are doing jobs that they should not be doing or are not getting paid enough for. So
you
just
think
hire
it's-
on the extra
it's
help
an
that you need.
understaffing issue, it sounds like you're saying.
I think it's a huge understaffing issue.
Yeah, well, and I think that would kind of explain the lack of certain skills, because if you're expecting the people to do all these different jobs, they can't be top tier at all those jobs. So you're going to have areas where they're just lacking, and where you could have someone better at the job, but you aren't getting that in there.
Yeah, and another thing is that like esports is like 24/7, right? It's constantly going, whether it's LCS or whatever teams you have. Yeah, there's streamers and stuff that you have to take care of, and how you ever gonna like sit, reflect on what you're good at, or understand where you need to work on, besides like reports that are done yearly or something like that, And it's like, well, I really wish I knew this in the middle of the year, or I wish somebody could help me with this in the middle of the year, and maybe this content piece would have been better, or I would have been able to use this content idea, except I just don't have the hands for it, I don't have the actual funding for it, all that stuff.
So I agree with Travis, which is why I was swinging my arms around a lot. And to your point about like the transparency and being understaffed and all that stuff, because I think the video itself had a lot of issues. I think a lot of it also is the presentation of just like a 1-minute clip out that just goes raw into, all right, you guys played good on Friday, but you fucked up the next 2 days, so I'm benching some of you. Is basically, like what that minute-long video was with then like a Bud Light ad. Like it just felt so brutal. Whereas, like Travis is saying, I feel like if someone had oversight on what this is and how it's going to be received, and like really be like, okay, this is not the way you do this, I feel like you could put that out. I still think there's issues with it, like some of how things were worded. I think, I like Tafo, I know him, but like saying if you guys 3-0'd the week, it would have been fine. I feel like you should be using internal things and being like, how is our team performing? How do we feel about the team, more than like exactly what's happening on the weekend stuff. But like either way, I feel like in a larger piece of content, I said almost this exact same thing on the dive actually, which is why I was like, what's up, Travis? Because there's been videos before. I think the C9 one was not particularly well done. I don't think this one was particularly well done, but there's been videos that, you have the players talking, you have the coaches talking, and you build a whole storyline around it, and then you can find a way to navigate that situation that gives fans transparency, but is also not sticking a camera in a room for 1 minute and saying you guys are benched and then showing the players' faces. Like, execution is everything. And this was just horribly executed.
So I have this theory, which is... Go ahead, Raz.
He's a guest. He's sitting here.
I'm just sitting here. What'd you call me for, Travis? Travis,
Raz,
this morning.
I thought you were going to dive
I
in
wanna
on
hear
all
more
this stuff
Raz.
previously. Go ahead. What do you think?
Travis. Okay. So the caller's point didn't even counteract yours. Like the initial point of how he worded it, which is basically what Mark just said, which is like there's possibly roster changes or something like that. If you don't know, or if you don't know what the exact roster changes are or something like that, then it shouldn't even be presented to that room at that point. You want to be 100% prepared before you even get into that kind of conversation. And also, you're right, as like another back up to like Mark's point, which is like talking about 1-2-1, all these things that doesn't actually mean anything. Like, what have we actually gotten better at all these things? Like, just as a general heads up. And also another thing is like, probably to my bigger point, which is middle of the season, top 8 gets in playoffs. We don't even fucking know. Like, every week is different, so like they could very easily still get into the top 8. And even if you want to make these changes beforehand, you can always make the changes, and then by the end of the season, or come out with this video when you like, if you want to do that. Like that's always the way to go. That's one thing that I actually appreciated about how FlyQuest did their business, or how Golden Guardians did their business, was that like they're just changes that they made throughout the split, and then they got good results off of it, or at least like very recently. Sometimes it didn't get good results. Diamond came back onto the team without his ass getting blasted in front of a camera in between splits, and I appreciate that. And now he's working out well. Morale is probably really damn good on those teams because they're focused on their own play, and I think that's one thing I actually appreciate. And to the larger point, remember, what incentive does a bottom 3, bottom 4 team have blasting players like this, in my opinion, during the split? If you're a team TSM or a team Liquid, I can understand. You can be like, well, we're a Worlds team. We're a team that plays our player the best and all these things. This is an obligation. People would still fucking hate it, but like, you can understand that. But there's no incentive, at least from a management perspective, to like, these players are on your team probably to like rejuvenate their career and give themselves a chance. And then, like, some more than others, every player has a different purpose or goal that got them there. After doing like this, after something like this, even if the fans didn't blow up on this, for the next season, who's actually going to join that team? You're not going to get secure imports, because like that's a fucking shit storm. You're not going to get any other LCS players, and the worst thing, you're probably not going to get the best academy players, because their brand's probably going to get blown up if they don't get a top 8 somewhere at the beginning of the split because of shit like this. Like, what for me would be a goal is like, hey, I'll use a random example of the player, like a Contracts, who definitely wants LCS playtime, right? But if he looks over that shitstorm in CLG, ooh, what does that do for him? Like, from a branding perspective, if he goes on that team, plays pretty well, or at least as best as he can, but that's still a losing team, well, they're just gonna fucking plaster him in front of a camera. And then, so like, from a branding perspective, now even top academy players don't have an incentive to join your team. Don't do this stuff is my big blow up.
Facts, Raz. That's all I'm gonna say.
I feel like when you break it down to your point, like, who is that video for? Like, it's not for fans, because you didn't give them a game plan, right? You didn't give them a goal of like, hey, we're benching these 2 people. We believe that by bringing in these academy players, we might be able to do this. Like, there was no forward thing. It was just them being like, we're benching you guys, and that's it. So
I
fans
have a
aren't gonna
theory.
like.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, like, I really don't know who that video was supposed to be for. It's not gonna make your players look good. It doesn't make your management look good. Not gonna make fans happy for transparency, because you're not actually giving them like something to hold on to. You're just saying some of these guys might be gone. I literally don't understand.
I mean, it's back to what their goal is, right? What do they want to do with the team? And they've not shown in the slightest what they want to do with CLG as a team. They're picking up players for what purpose? What are they doing with their brand? Like, IMT was like awful last year. IMT was just like one of the worst teams as well to be on, and I think they've done a fantastic job this year. I think at least Golden Guardians has a direction that they're trying to go towards, and it doesn't matter if they lose because they have a goal in mind and they're reaching it. You know? It's like, what does CLG want? What are they trying to prove? What are they trying? Are they trying to bring the fans back? Because, like, I honestly have no clue how people are fans of CLG at this point.
Yeah,
Is just
yeah.
holding on the straws.
Well,
And to
so
Sojin's point, like really earlier on, like, and I'm not like speaking for you at all, but like just extrapolating, if you're too afraid of what's happening from heads up and above, then the idea of, you know, investing in a franchise player that, like, kind of like what Golden Guardians, like the risk that they did in Spring Split, that's a death sentence. Like, if you just come in with a player like that, or like with a mentality around bringing it from the bottom up, and if it doesn't work up, then you know, coaching staff is not, or the management, even management, coaching staff, everyone's going to be on heads on heel and like going to be doing everything differently because they don't have clear direction. And that's always been my problem with CLG, with MSG, is that they don't have a clear head, right? For EG, they have Nicole. For they have Megumi on FlyQuest. Like, they have basically
Maybe
faces.
100 like faces for them. Yeah.
Exactly. They have faces, not just for the fans, but for the people within you know, the players, for the fucking coaching staff that they can always go to, have like a one-on-one and have clear direction on what they're actually doing. And if you don't get that, then it's always on your toes.
So I'm just, if anybody can clarify this, is the Bud Light Gaming cooldown just the clip that they post to Twitter, or is it actually a video? Because my understanding, my impression initially, so I still have an archived version of the tweet, which was like, quote, "This might be the last time that we have this roster of live playing at Tafokens. On the Bud Light Gaming cooldown, we take you behind the scenes on a private team meeting, hashtag LCS, hashtag CLG fighting." So I don't know if it's supposed to be teasing like a broader, if this was a clip from the broader show, but like, okay.
I think it's teasing something. Yeah.
So my theory in terms of like how this happens, and kind of getting back to the management stuff, not to say that this is, you know, excusing it or anything like this, but my guess is they're working on this video. It's going to come out later. You have, you know, I'm not trying to blast anybody here, but like a social media person or like a sponsorship person or something that's like, we got to put out something on social media that will like catch people's eyes and like get people interested in the stuff or whatever. And so they clip this section of that video and they post it to the Twitter, and they're like, here we go. You know, it's less thinking about like the PR side of it and more just kind of this like automated process. Like, I would be surprised if leadership at CLG like actually was greenlighting this and was like, yeah, this is perfect, just go post this. Because I'm guessing it's, as Matt had said, or XSojin, that it's just people are really overworked. There's so few people there. Somebody's under pressure to try to get like Twitter impressions up. They've got this clip. They know they can post it, and it'll, you know, maybe not thinking
yeah, to be fair,
so much about the
I
PR
think this
side
is
of it.
two separate issues. I think these are two separate issues, to be honest. Like, there's a large, I mean, they can bleed into each other, absolutely. This one specifically definitely had a quality control issue, like of someone just being able to listen in and be like, this is not a good idea from the content side, pushing this out. So
Stacy Layla in
Says
chat
this is
says
just
it's a clip.
post every week on Monday.
Yeah. So if
So
that's
they're not
just your
promoting
Monday
something.
clip, just fire and forget into the void.
Yeah, that's terrible then. I don't know. It's just, it's so weird. Like, I wish I knew the process. Like, I'd be very fascinated with the process by it. So somebody filmed it, and they were like,
They reviewed it. They edited it.
and then they sent it to the social media person and said, tweet it. Like, I don't know. It's just really weird.
That's what I'm saying. The back channels aren't enough. It's like someone, you'd think it's like that difficult, but it's like the one person films it, he goes, edits it, and then he can just go over and talk to the one social guy. And they like, I've seen the video editing people work with the social, the singular social dedicated person together, right? Like I've seen multiple people working with him because this dude is just by himself.
Yeah.
Like how you expect to have one social person across the board and then have other people pitch in versus like C9, who we currently have 7 people on just the social side.
Oh boy. Okay. Well,
Yikers. One more thing I want to say about this is because there's some people who are saying like, oh, league fans are just like overreacting, or like this is why you'll never get transparency anymore, is because, you know, they get flamed for being transparent and stuff. Or, you know, and I've seen tweets about this. I've seen this kind of be like the counter backlash that's coming in response to the initial backlash of like, this shit was stupid. And to me, I really hope that's not the takeaway from orgs and other people, that they're like, well, this is why next time I make a roster move, I'm not saying shit. Because, like, again, execution is everything. There's such a, like, anyone who works in content for any period of time can see a way that you could do a truthful, honest, raw version of like, our team is struggling, we got to make changes video. That's not this. That would be received well. And like, a 1-minute clip in the middle of like a random meeting that just goes right into it is not it. And so that's why I hope teams, I swear to God, if the people watching are like, oh man, well, let's just not be transparent anymore because this is what's going to happen. It's like, no.
yeah. I mean, we've talked
Please,
about
for the
this.
love of God.
We talked about this with the Team Liquid stuff, right? It's like it's really weird to me because we've seen, and I feel like it's been amplified so much this split because of the amount of roster changes that have been occurring within the split. But I personally feel as though we have seen teams in the LCS have done, I think, a poor job of thinking proactively about how they message roster changes, how they handle this stuff, etc. There should always, in my opinion, be, like we talked about this with the Dardock stuff, I think last week or the week before. It's like there should always be a break in case of emergency plan that you have to execute on when you need to make roster changes. And I get that not all of them happen in the same way. Sometimes you're making a roster change on a Friday when your team is playing the next day on a Saturday. But it's been disappointing to me to see how much everyone has just fumbled the ball in terms of like either no transparency or, in this case, a disturbing level of transparency without context and all this stuff. It's really weird. And so I hope that every LCS team that is seeing what's happening, some of them are participating in it, but others, I think, are watching it, should be thinking to themselves, we are going to figure out how we are going to handle this in the future and like where the right line is. And I agree with Mark. It shouldn't be, well, we're just never going to talk about it. We're just going to like put a tweet out and like ignore any of the conversation. But more like how do you think thoughtfully about this stuff? So I don't know.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm always in the boat of transparency, because when we talk about transparency, like people
You're saying
want
more transparency? Sorry, you kind of cut off.
no transparency.
No transparency. Okay.
We're comparing, like, well, let me just fucking finish my point here, Mr. Travis.
Sorry.
Gafford.
Go. I didn't understand you. I wanted to make sure everybody could hear what you meant.
Snap in a Z formation. So like my point is, what people want to hear is like, oh, why is a player off the in academy or off the team or something like that? You really want them to be like, oh, because this guy, and I'm just making stories up, by the way, this is not a real thing. Oh, this guy had a huge fit, blah, 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 and now he's off the team. Or, oh, this guy like really sucked in comparison to the academy player, and this is why he's like moved into the academy team or something like that. If you're just that like straightforward, or like, oh, there's this, if you just communicate the drama in particular, like people want this type of shit, by the way. Then yeah, suddenly I don't really care. Like I'm just speaking from like players' perspective. Like if you're talking about wanting to be on the team, like one of these type of teams, they're just not going to be interested. And also another thing, I think teams like C9 or TSM or Team Liquid can't do that because they're championship teams. They're type of teams where it's like that transparency is much more easier because there are higher expectations versus some of the teams that we're, by the way, talking about, like a CLG that is last place not only in their LCS team, but they're an academy team, or Golden Guardians or Licorice. When I say Licorice, I meant FlyQuest or FlyQuest. Like these teams that it's like there is going to be bumps in the road, and you are incentivized to like not blow up the players publicly, so you can actually have a chance at A, either them redeeming themselves, or B, if it doesn't work out, taking a chance on another player without them being very suspicious and taking other options. So I would have a different response to if it was a TSM, Team Liquid, or whatever, or 100 Thieves, I guess, right now.
Yeah.
But for the bottom teams, just don't. You don't have to say why. Like, you can say it's not working out. You can use the vague shit. I think the Dignitas one was just really, really poorly executed. But like, just be vague in comparison to just like blowing up players.
Alright.
Yeah, and I think a lot of these organizations don't realize how hard their words and all that stuff transfers on these players' reputations and stuff like that. And that's definitely one of the things. Really shitty roster swaps damage reputations for players a lot harder than they would think.
All right. Well, WardenWinter, thank you so much for the call. I apologize for the Warden mix-up. Is there anything you want to shout out here at the end?
Just a shout out to your upcoming Hotline League Live that's going to be at finals, which I'm sure you're going to do, right?
Oh my!
I would say
for sure, absolutely.
I would say much easier to do that back when my title sponsor was associated with LCS. Maybe more difficult now. I haven't looked into it. I'll just put it that way. But there was an easier way to do it previously.
That sounded like a yes to me.
Worst case scenario, Travis and I go to a random hotel, grab the Wi-Fi password, and we just host it in the lobby. Worst case
Mark,
scenario.
do you want to put any effort into that?
No more than I just did.
Yes, exactly.
I can help secure the Wi-Fi.
Do it in the streets of New Jersey.
Yeah, set up a hotspot. Just set up a hotspot in your phone.
Do it in the streets
Please
of
don't
Jersey.
put this on me, guys. I don't know how difficult it is to make something like this happen during the months following the lifting of all this stuff. I don't know. Anyway, WardenWinter,
doing a show here.
Hopefully I see you at the live Hotline League that we are probably not going to be able to do. But thank you for the call. Appreciate it.
All right, bye.
All right, XSojin, thank you for calling in and
of course,
sharing
Travis
your bit. We've spent the last hour or so talking about this. So is there anything that you want to say out there before we say goodbye to you?
Nah, I don't really have much, Travis. I was just bored. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad I could give you something to do on a Monday night.
Yeah, really entertaining. Thanks. First time you ever had me. I'm so surprised. Mark, you should have vouched for me a lot sooner, no?
Well,
Yeah,
do you
you
remember
guys
when
hate
he
me.
joined C9, he and Portillo were spamming in the chat saying, can we please talk about how interesting it is?
Don't say him and Portillo. It was just Portillo.
You also spammed it as well. You
Do I
wanted
have
us
the
to
proof?
talk about you joining Cloud9.
You're sounding real sus right now, Travis. I don't see no proof and a lot of accusations.
Well, anyway, I'm just happy you're getting paid now. I'll catch you later.
Thank you.
Catch you later. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Late.
All right.
Take it easy.
We're going to take a quick break to talk about our sponsor, Alienware. So Alienware, doing a bunch of really cool stuff, but one of the things that I've been talking about a lot lately is their Black Friday in July deals. You can save on unrivaled power, limited quantity deals going on right now. If you actually, the easiest way to get to all this stuff is just to go to Dell.com. You'll see a big banner right there. But if you can also go to Alienware.com/Travis. If you land on that page, actually, I take it all back. Don't go to Dell.com. They've updated my page. We love Alienware. Alienware.com/Travis. The top banner, you can click on it. It's a big ol' ad for the Black Friday and July stuff, and you'll see all their limited time deals. So you can keep checking back because they do these limited quantity drops of these awesome deals. Similar to maybe what some of you guys saw during like Prime Day or whatever. And so it's a perfect time if you keep your eye on it. Maybe you're going to spot a great deal on something. So right now, for instance, they have an M15 R4 gaming laptop. This thing's got an i9 in it and a 3080. Normally $3,200, down to $2,400 right now. 39% claimed. So I can't promise it'll be there if you are watching the VOD or whatever. But again, clicking on that banner at the top of Alienware.com/Travis, you can go see some of these deals. And it's awesome when they're dropping stuff like this for folks that are interested in getting something new. So either way, thank you so much to Alienware for sponsoring the show. Please go get some Black Friday and July deals going. And by the way, Team Liquid did an amazing ad. I wonder if it's on the Team Liquid channel or the Team Liquid LOL channel. Did you guys see this where they dressed Jenkins up as an old man, Mark and Raz?
I saw a little bit of it. I saw like 5 seconds before I moved away.
Yes, I'm gonna put it in the chat because I'm actually so impressed at what they were able to do. There's a link.
Are they doing the
chat
Kyrie Irving video?
I don't know.
You know what I'm talking about, Raz?
I know what you're talking about. It was Uncle something.
Yeah. God. Those
what was
videos
it?
were incredible. They're probably all staged,
Uncle
but like,
Drew.
fuck, I don't.
Yeah.
Uncle Drew, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Thank
you
you
guys
Nighty.
should see the makeup that they did. I'm actually really
Best
impressed. They must have
price.
hired a makeup artist or something like that for this video. But shout out to Team Liquid. I love it. I don't think that this got enough attention, but it's
what'd
actually
they do with it?
hilarious. It's here. Do you see it? I linked it in the chat, in the Twitch chat, Mark, the Twitter thing. Just skip around and see what they did to make him. I don't know. It's so funny to me how old they were able to make him. And the great thing, like, oftentimes these newer players, I think, are not down to play this stuff up so much, but his acting is actually pretty good in it. It was pretty impressive. So I don't know.
What the fuck?
Isn't it crazy?
It's
Yeah,
good,
literally
but
6 seconds in, I'm done with it.
I mean, I just like they needed to go somewhere public with him. They should have brought him to the LCS and like
Yes.
had him pretend to be Jenkins' dad and like talk some shit to the other players or something.
Might be hard to
like,
convince LCS to do an Alienware ad right now, but
If they were
I don't know.
trading times, you don't have to tell him it was an alien.
What are you doing?
Have him play a game.
Anyway,
While he's
thank you so
old.
much to Alienware for sponsoring.
Hey, what are they
the
gonna
show.
do? Tell him no?
I thank you so much to Riot tells people no all the time.
Wait, I
It's
can't
just
dress my
skin
player in
condition.
old man makeup and put him
Don't
on
even say it.
stage?
It's a skin condition. What are you gonna do? Take him off the stage?
Do it while Alfari's playing. Just put him in makeup and walk him around the LCS studio like you're filming content normally, which teams can do. And just have him like talk to top laners and shit talk them. And they're
sure
like, who is this old fuck roaming around
could-
saying this shit?
Provide all this feedback to Team Liquid, and they can do this.
I
Maybe they
will.
can bring it back.
They absolutely need to, because that was the whole thing about the Uncle Drew thing that was awesome. Was like, I mean, it might have been staged, but either way, like the seeing people have to interact with this old guy.
Yeah, that's some good shit.
Yeah. Well, also, I don't know how teams would feel about their players appearing in a rival sponsor video. Mark,
do
you
it all the
make these
time.
faces. These is actually the shit that goes on behind the scenes. Everyone will think that I am like crazy for suggesting that this is the way it works, but you know how it is. When you try to work when you are a team and you're sponsored by one brand, and then the other team is sponsored by a different brand, you think TSM is going to be happy that their players are showing up at an Alienware ad?
All you have to do,
Content here.
Oh my god,
walk into a random mall,
tilting me
start
off
interacting
the
with
fucking
anybody.
planet, friend. Okay.
You might even find a nice anti-vaxxer so you can make content at their expense. See?
Jesus.
Great ideas.
Go down to the promenade or the pier, even though you're not
Yeah.
supposed to film at those spots. It's
What
fine.
are they going to take your YouTube video down? Probably.
Probably.
Okay.
What is TSM going to do if you record Bjergsen getting interrupted by an old man? Are we going to record Bjergsen being mean, and then they're going to be like, hey, don't do that? I don't answer to TSM. I answer to Team Liquid.
It is.
Great. I'm glad. Can we go on to the next caller now, Mark?
So
I love how that was all a part of your ad.
I think I need to make sure that it wasn't. Is what I would say. Okay. Where are we? Okay. Thank you to Colors in Bloom, Micro, Smoke Dog for 26 months, Emulator, Omega Diamond Zinc, Whoopley. I think I got everybody. Ari Waddle, and then Cheney Core for the 3 months, Raging Pianist for 25, Musiki, Acarn Liberated, Hatigwal. Thank you for the 5 gifted subs, Dasher 777, and 20 pounds of hummus. Notorious.
Yeah,
Bob.
thank you for the gifted sub, Raging Penis.
Pianist. Thank you,
that's what he
Jiro.
said.
I know. I was just reiterating it. Jiro,
My
thanks
bad.
for calling in. Where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm calling from Cranston, Rhode Island.
Cranston, Rhode Island. What do you want to talk about on the show?
My topic is that Danny is easily one of the top candidates for summer 2021 MVP based on the stats, eye tests, and where he comes from. He's fresh out of amateur. He was only on one team in amateur. That was Zenith Esports, which then got absorbed by Evil Geniuses to make Evil Geniuses Prodigies. In his first ever split, he comes in. He's challenging people like FLYA for the top position in AD carry. He's putting up really impressive stats for ADCs who have played more than 10 games. He has a 5.0 KDA. It's the second highest. He's the second highest in DPM for ADCs with more than 10 games. He took a middling EG roster They're now 12-6 in summer. They're right up there, third place, tied. They're just doing really well.
I think they're tied for
look like
second.
they're gonna be,
if you're just looking at summer record, yeah.
if you're looking at summer record, yeah, they're second. But if you're
Yeah.
looking at all-time standing right now, they're third. He's looking really impressive, I think.
So who are all of his?
Credit
are there
to
are, who-
Abadage.
What was that? Sorry.
Mark, what were you saying?
Nothing. What were you gonna say?
I was going to ask who are the other names that would be on that list. Actually, I'm trying to remember. 'Cause
For
rookie is now
MVP?
throughout the year.
I don't think
is
he
it
said
per split?
rookies, Travis.
No, I'm saying for the actual whole.
You're
said
saying
MVP?
MVP?
That's
Travis,
the problem,
listen to the
Travis.
damn
Travis,
callers.
you're the host, Travis.
I didn't realize a host didn't need ears.
Okay. Well, co-hosts don't need mouths. Here's what I will say, Jiro. Here's what I will say. I was like, oh, he's calling in with the very standard, it's rookie of the split or rookie of the year thing, and I was like, okay, thought that it was going to be rookie, and then you're actually going MVP, which I think is actually wild. No wonder Mark mentioned Abadage. You're unmuted now, Mark. I was just doing to Mark and Raz what Raz does to everybody on Friday afternoons before.
I love
the
it.
show.
Well, do you want better, Travis? Why not both then? Why not both rookie? Of the
Well, I
split
think if
and-
you're giving him MVP, you have to give a rookie, right? Like you have to get both.
Well, MVP is not just the best player in the league; it's the person who has the most value to his team. There could be like an actual better rookie, but
You
Danny
think
provides
somebody
more
could get MVP and then somebody else would get rookie? That
I mean,
seems
I
wild
don't.
to me.
No. I'm saying that could happen. I still
Yeah.
think Danny's the best rookie. I'm just saying it's plausible.
MVP.
People give Abadage credit for turning around 100 Thieves, right? They're like, oh, Abadage came in, they went from 4th to 1st. Danny comes in, only changed from spring to summer. They go from 5th to 2nd.
But based on
Is the
eye
caller
test-
crazy? Is the caller crazy?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I think so.
But like,
I'm
okay,
crazy.
so I'll go into the point where I think it's the coldest take. I'm not saying you made this take, but I'm saying we all agree with the idea that Danny is the rookie of the year, just based on. I haven't seen the other rookies, but I can't I haven't even thought of a second rookie that's on the top of my mind. But almost easily, Danny has come in with a really strong split. Of course, he has to finish the split, so we need to see that nothing catastrophic ends up happening here, right? But overall, has been really damn good. But from an MVP perspective, I wouldn't even say that he is the best player on EG. I think Ignar has just been consistently having incredibly strong games. So there's that aspect, and then there's the easy ones of Spica, Closer, Abadaga. I'm trying to think of another one that comes to mind.
How are Ignar or Danny supposed to get
Fudge
MVP
as well.
when they can't
Go
even
on.
get Player of the Week?
Well, that's
You're
exactly
trying to-
why they can't be MVP. They're not good
Yeah.
enough.
There it is.
Exactly.
Just naturally.
Exactly.
Go on.
I was gonna say, so Danny for MVP, I agree. I feel like he's good. Don't get me wrong. I really like Danny. He's been incredible to watch. He's grown a lot too, just over the course of this split. I mean, I think early weeks Danny to Danny in the last two is almost night and day difference. I still think that a lot of the ways that EG plays, to Raz's point about the best player. I mean, not even just best, but the most influential players are a lot of times the top side of the map. I feel like Jizuke gets a lot of credit and bad credit, negative, just all the attention's on Jizuke. I feel like, but I feel like that makes sense considering he's such an explosive player, and people watch him because he is the engine in a lot of plays where he's making things happen. Don't get me wrong, Danny played great. This is one of the things Peter Dunn popped off on Twitter this week. He played Tristana, had a pretty decent laning phase, and then just AFK split pushed and did his job of taking turrets down while the enemy team reacted to all the bullshit happening somewhere else on the map. And then he chunked people out in front of turrets. He was playing the game really well, but I'm watching that game and I'm not wow, Danny's winning the game. It's wow, the top side of the map is.
was about to say,
Go
I
ahead.
thought that specific game, like him chunking Ezreal at one moment, got them the free Baron. Like they
Yeah.
secured the Baron incredibly well as a team, but like he kind of gave him that window. So I give him credit for that one. I still think that in that game, I'd give it to Ignar. But it's like creating a competition of like two incredibly good players. So I don't want people coming out of this thinking, you're shitting on Danny. Another thing too. Fudge came into the conversation, and I realized how bastardized the whole Rookie of the Year conversation can be, because like my memory goes back to the LPL, which just gave like Viper, Griffin Viper Rookie of the Year. So I'm like, ah, shit, I forgot. Like having a conversation about experience versus inexperience is always going to be hard. So I'm just going to leave that one alone, and we'll just go straight to the MVP.
So it doesn't
topic.
matter. Fudge isn't even eligible for Rookie of the Split in
Right,
NA
yeah.
rules.
Oh, there it is. Then there we go.
Saves you the effort of having to think about it.
Yeah,
Thank goodness.
but it's got to be Danny, right, for rookie. I mean, it's just
Yeah, I think so. Once
think
again,
so.
like, yeah, I think so.
all right. So oh, go ahead, Mark.
I was just gonna say that I think the MVP thing is tough. We were talking about this on the dive a little bit. This feels like a weird split for MVP currently. EG surging up the rankings feels like they should have a candidate on their roster, but I actually don't even know who I would suggest for EG. For TSM, it feels like all the weights ending up behind Spica, especially given his most recent weekend. Like he popped off even in that game that they won. Like it was pretty sus, and it was like his Diana hard carrying. And then on 100 Thieves, I feel like there's actually a lot of candidates, and that's not always necessarily a good thing, because it's like, are you giving it to Abadaga? Are you giving it to FBI? Are you giving it to Closer? Like there's all these people who might be taking them from each other.
And everyone will be pissed whenever somebody. Yeah, it's very fascinating.
Yeah, so this is a really weird split right now for me to be talking about MVP, because I don't feel like I have a good answer right now.
Yeah.
Even though I'm like, oh, it's probably not Danny, but at the same time, like if they end up winning the split, let's say get all the way to first, I'm like, well, wait, maybe I am. I don't know.
I mean, it makes it. It's because this is, in my opinion, the most chaotic split we've ever had, that I can remember at least. Like, it's crazy to see how all these teams are doing, and how you'll have like 100 T surge, and then like their surge will fall, and now like we've got EG, who like I feel like 2 or 3 weeks ago nobody was even thinking about EG as anything other than like a middling team. Like they were just, nobody was really talking about them. Now everybody's talking about them a ton. Like the traditional top teams are all over the place other than TSM, and TSM, I feel like maybe because, to Mark's point, like they're not this like flashy team that's like dominating everybody. Like they're just not commanding the conversation. So it's a really weird, it's exciting, and there's a lot of uncertainty, which I like, but it's really hard to find what the narrative is, because this is not just like Immortals or Cloud9 or TL or TSM dominating everyone, and like the biggest story is, when will this team drop a game,
I do want to make it pretty clear with Evil Geniuses, because like for sure, like I'll just give an example. Like the broadcast team was definitely tracking their success. Like my biggest thing on Evil Geniuses was like they had a 2-1 week taking down like TSM and Dig in week 4, and then week 5, that's when they got their 5-win streak. And for the most part, most teams would get like a good hit, a good juice. Like people would give them a lot of respect based off of a 5-game win streak. But then like that was the split. That was the week where they had CLG, Golden Guardians, and FlyQuest. Yeah. And so like FlyQuest, during their ridiculous, like I think it was like 10-game losing streak, everybody already knows about CLG and the losses that they were taking. And Golden Guardians was like a growing team, but the asterisk was always that we needed to see more, and this week was that more, and then they killed it. So strength of schedule definitely plays a role into it. And also going to the point that Mark said about like who we take from Evil Geniuses. And yeah, they're a really fucking good, well-rounded team, and a lot of their players are rising in those moments. And I do think that people just don't give a lot of thought process into, and I'm just saying everyone, like supports, they're rising. Like Ignar has just had consistently insane games. Same goes for Danny, but like Ignar has for me like been a real standout that's changing the support tier list for me, and for a lot of people. But because of the fact that people don't look towards supports a lot of the times in like just stomps, and more so the carries because they're a lot more flashier, then yeah, he ain't getting that MVP or like player of the games, I mean, or like much respect. So I think For sure, the bot lane of EG is going to get a lot of respect. Jizuke is playing insanely well past the first 2 weeks, and Impacts has just been great. So
the thing that is really interesting to me is this final round robin, because we've got 3 more weeks left, and it's just going to be really fascinating to see how these 3 weeks unfold, because it is really, in my mind, a matter of like, can C9 and TL fix their shit, and can TSM find like really stable footing for themselves, or are we going to continue to see like 100T and EG threaten those teams? And like, it'd be like, if the playoffs started today, or I guess this weekend, it would be just wild to see the seeding that you would have for that, because it would look so different than I feel like what you see playoff brackets look like in all these previous years and splits. So I don't know. I'm super hyped to see what transpires over the next 3 weeks, because I think that's going to be really intense, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I'm actually much more excited about playoffs in summer than in spring, because in spring it felt like a three horse race between TSM, Team Liquid, and C9, and every other game was horrific. And then this time around, you're actually having teams that are competitive. 100 Thieves, TSM, Team Liquid, I'm sure will get better. They just brought in Alfari, and I'm sure they'll be more consistent with him on the roster. And then, you have Evil Geniuses, and you have teams that are actually getting better around them. So it's going to be – there are a lot more games to still play.
I'm excited for sure.
TSM.
All right, Jiro. I don't know if this group is buying your MVP. I didn't buy it so much that when you mentioned it, I misheard it. So either way, Jiro, is there anything that you feel like we're missing on this? Any final pleas before we give you your shout out?
I mean, you got to really look at where he comes from, no. And when you're thinking of MVP, it's the value they bring, and I think it's where, like I just said, they come from. I mean, he's coming from, what is it, just 1 or 2, I guess technically splits in amateur, comes right in, skips academy, and is already putting up impressive stats. He's showing pretty good mechanics. He's not scared at all to do really anything that the team might need him to do. He comes in, he replaces a middling deftly. He's just turning around a team, making them look like the best team.
Yeah, you mentioned the where he comes from argument in your first time, and we didn't really address that. I don't know if that.
I'll be honest.
But
yeah,
that does
I don't
much for me
think
on the
anyone
MVP front.
Yeah, I don't think people care about that. I don't.
Yep. MVP is about where you are right now.
Yeah.
MVP is like value. I mean, not really contractually. Like, I don't care if you make 100,000 compared to someone else's 2 million at the 80 carry position. I really don't care. Value on the Rift, not value in pocketbook or something.
Yeah. There's a lot to be said about him for given where he's coming from. I don't want to discount that, but I don't think that plays as much into the MVP situation. Maybe, honestly, that might play more into the coach of the split conversation, right? Because that's where
Peter
you start
climbing
talking
up.
About, yeah,
is it Reaper or Peter now?
All that stuff you just said about Danny, I feel like says as much about the EG coaching staff as it does about Danny himself. So I don't know.
Well, Danny's still a product of that, it's obviously you can tell that the coaching staff is doing a lot of stuff to get him where he is, but it's also him. He's also why he's where he is,
Yes,
so.
For sure.
Well, I think that's why he'll probably get rookie. Hey, Jiro, anything you want to say before we move on to the next caller?
I just shout out to Alienware, shout out to Mountain Dew Game Fuel. It's a great product. I've had it many times myself. They have
what flavor?
Right down. The cherry one. I can't remember the exact name, but I like the cherry.
Charged Cherry Burst.
Charged Cherry Burst. There it is. And I guess shout out to my friend group, Flutters, Nate Silence, and my friend Jake, Nexus 34.
Nice. Well, thank you so much, Jiro, for
I
the
didn't
call.
even.
Oh, what were you gonna say?
I didn't realize I was drinking charged raspberry lemonade.
I think I've mentioned that before for you.
I was downing these. I was like, man, I don't know why I'm chugging so many of the red ones. Normally, I'm a watermelon boy.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Jiro, for the call. We'll catch you next time.
Of course. Take care.
There we go. We just did the Alienware ad. I'm sad because right now feels like the perfect time to do the Game Fuel ad based off of what just happened. But let's take one more caller and then we'll get to it. Off Mark goes to grab our next caller. Thank you to Laser Chicken for the 8 months. White Rice 369, Mars 2030, M Potter 2020, Saber Strike, Purple Ray Q for the subs. Very, very, very much appreciated. We're at 970 subscribers. I don't know if we can get to 1,000 tonight, but that'd be cool. LordxCharizard, what are you doing, Raz? Are you trying to get Taco Bell branding in? Is that what's happening?
Maybe I'll be sponsored. Maybe I'll be one of those NASCAR drivers, but I'll just have a big Taco Bell logo on me when I'm on broadcast.
Yeah. I don't know how. You might need to talk to the Riot partnership team. I don't know how they would feel about that. LordxCharizard, sorry for interrupting. Calling from what I assume is the top of a volcano.
No, actually, I'm calling from Dallas, Texas, but pretty much a volcano.
Okay, gotcha. The Dallas Fort Worth area. Wait, is your call going to be about finals?
I am actually kind of bummed about that. I feel slighted from the LCS for not bringing it back here.
Is that your take?
No, that's not my take.
Oh, I thought it was so funny. I know there's a sentiment, some frustration from Texans in particular about not having it. So when you said from Dallas, I assume that's what it was. Sorry, go ahead. What is your take?
So my take is that the success that Academy players have been having this year in the LCS shows that with genuine effort and growing talent, teams can be successful. The teams that earlier this year are wanting to get rid of their Academy teams need to step up and invest more into the programs instead of trying to get rid of them. With FlyQuest being just one of the best examples just recently of their Academy team coming in and just slapping people left and right,
Oh, boy. Yeah. I mean, I have strong feelings about this. I think it's disappointing that teams are... Yeah. I believe a lot in Academy, and I feel like there was a big investment into Academy this year, and I agree with you that we're starting to see that stuff pay out. I think there needs to be as much work being done on the branding side to get like people to care about a lot of these players, which I think is an issue that we've had. But it does seem as though we're seeing a lot of Academy people find their footing in the LCS now that they've come in. Raz, since you have experience in LCS Academy, I'm curious what you think of this conversation, what you've thought of some of these players that have shown up from the Academy world.
Surprise, surprise. These LCS owners and all these things trying to say no to Academy and all these things for so long and no to having more than 5 players. Oh, but when your team starts busting, this starts dying, you guys are ass. Who do you guys call for? That's right. We all know the answer to that. It's FlyQuest Academy that comes and saves the day. And I know the messaging on that was like, they'd be coming in for a week, but they better extend that for
no
rest
kidding.
of split. Contracts coming in, having a strong performance, and even if like Svenskeren is gonna, even if Svenskeren becomes like the main player, suddenly track stock is up. You sell that, to another LCS team that's middling, you get a big payday. You should be happy about that. And then you look towards 100 Thieves, that their amateur players are paying off huge for themselves, like Copy that's doing really well in C9. And then from their academy team, they're succeeding and all that. Not even talking about Luger on that team, but of course, like not even talking about C9, who Fudge was a part of. And then I'm trying to remember another one, Team Liquid. Oh, who did you call to save you in your time of need? Jenkins and Armeo. Armeo is performing pretty well too. So yeah, I know you didn't want to make this conversation dominate your show, Travis, but guess who has the worst academy team?
Is it
CLG, baby?
Yeah. Guess who's not going to save you in your time of need if you don't invest in academy? I'm just putting that out there.
It's a very good point. Actually, a really, really good point. Is it like that CLG? Because people have said, fans have been frustrated. I saw a conversation on, I think, the CLG subreddit or something like that, where, I'm not here to say what they should do, but some folks were saying Pobelter should be replaced. Who's our academy mid laner? And then people say RJS, who previously had been in the league, and like there were issues with his performance as well. And so it is a fair point that like if you have a great lineup of folks behind you, it's pretty good. I don't want to derail us too much, but one of the things I've been kind of thinking about recently is, okay, how do I put this? When we were talking about the MVP candidate stuff, I think in November of last year, December of last year, you'd say, well, certainly in the summer when you're getting close to the MVP time, Perks is going to be in that conversation and will be one of the biggest names. Or it should be Sword Art. Or it should be Alfari. And it's interesting. I just think that it is an interesting situation that we have found ourselves in, where, look, I'm happy to have all three of those players in the LCS, and I'm happy when people are getting big paydays. But when you are looking at your budget in the LCS, I think there's an argument to be made that perhaps you should invest some of the money. If you have a large budget, putting some of that money into Academy rather than like trying to remove Academy as a cost for yourself so that you have more money to pay for big name imports. I think there's a lot of reasoning for something like that. So I don't know. Not to
And
go
I
too far
support
down
you
the perks
fully,
Alfari
Travis.
side. Thank you.
I didn't even put in the names of my boy Ablaze Olive, Chime,
There's there next.
Danny coming up. Look, if you're a team that wants to save cash, and I love all these players. I hate the whole conversation of cash and no cash, but in this case, like, invest heavily in a strong coaching staff and invest heavily in an academy so you can build up, because it will pay off. If it doesn't pay off, something fucking was wrong. So you've done something wrong out there. Something happened. You can review that after the year is all done. But we just have a lot of. I think this is a really good split, by the way. So I think this is a good split where teams are. Even TSM got an amateur team, and they made some good options in who they got in their amateur team. So I think a lot of teams are making the right call. It'll pay out in time.
The one,
Give 'em a year.
I'll undercut myself here by just saying Abadaga is like a pretty good counter to what I was talking about in terms of being willing to go out and spending, because he is in the MVP situation. But Mark, you looked like you were going to say something.
Yeah, for the Abadagi point, hop in there quick. It's a clear Band-Aid, though, where it's like, okay, we need a good mid laner. Let's go get the best mid laner we can. Like, we're struggling in mid lane. And they also brought in a new coach. So, like, for me, I think it's okay to spend money in, like, a problem-solving way if you think that that's what you're doing, versus, like, I just grabbed the biggest name in the offseason.
Yeah.
So I do think there's a bit of a different approach there, even though Abadaga is a import,
Yeah.
That was something where they had one split together and like, okay, this isn't working. Here's what we need. Well, on the Academy talent point, like, yeah, for sure. I hate giving an arrow credit, but even like, and players also, what that other caller was saying, like, Danny deserves credit for developing on his own, putting in work. A lot of the Golden Guardians guys do too, but like a Blaze Olive, FBI and Huhi last year, Huhi was a role swap support. They had Keith McBrief starting earlier on, and then they swapped to Huhi, and he continued to become one of the best supports in the league now. Like FBI was great in the OS already. There's like a lot of players who already have like greatness and they just get better. And so like, I feel like, those teams that are investing in Academy and giving people chances, like, yeah, Niles didn't work out, but that, like, I appreciate them trying. And I think you can see now.
And here's the thing to that, like, Niles has like a great opportunity to come back, because like he wasn't even in the Academy system, right? So he got that experience in LCS. But now he's going into Academy, and I'm sure he's going to get better for that. And I think people undersell the developing aspect. All the players that we mentioned, like, got developed through coaching staff and also through their own personal goals, and then they're much better for it. And like the product of contracts, when he was literally in the interview talking about, like, yeah, he was working on his shot calling, playmaking, like, not playmaking, shot calling, and like his communication and all these things. So it's like players who have the opportunity to take a deep breath and not have the fans and kind of like looming immediate success that's necessary all like over them. So I think it's been doing a lot of good.
Go ahead, Mark.
What were you gonna say? Because I'm about to launch into my FlyQuest tangent, and then no one's talking for 10 minutes. So get in here while you can.
I'm ready.
Okay. Here's what I will say. I will also say I want to give props to some of these teams too, because it actually takes a lot of courage to commit to the development side. I mean, maybe it doesn't take much courage when you don't have the money to go spend on like big players. You don't have much of an option, but
Brett's got a pillow.
It is brutal. It is brutal, the feedback that you're going to get from all sides, from fans, from co-streamers, from hotline league callers, whenever you are saying, all right, we're going to lose some games with some of these Academy players, but we're going to see if we could forge them into something. And I actually think that it's impressive to me that because look, the other side of this, not to bring them back up, but like the other side of this is CLG. I will always think, I've mentioned this multiple times. We had a caller during the off season or right at the start of the year where somebody said like CLG's the bar. If for these new players, because CLG is the other end of the spectrum of like, okay, well, we found these players that like haven't had the best performances. We're going to throw them onto a team and see if we can get better versus people who were like, we're going to try to invest in the next generation. And what we're seeing right now is that CLG, based off summer performance, is at the bottom. And it certainly seems like they're headed that direction in overall performance too. And these other teams are finding ways to climb. And yes, sometimes you have
We're hitting the bar, boys.
Sometimes what you have is also what happened with Dignitas and all that, right? Where like there's some explosions along the way or whatever. But I'm happy to see teams doing this, because even if at the end of this, the only thing that happens is like Steve pulls out his checkbook and gives some money to like, I don't know, FlyQuest or Golden Guardians instead of to, I don't know, some European organization. I still am happy that we have teams and that there's work that's being done on the development side, to the caller's point, because we're starting to see the fruits of that labor now in players like Danny, in players like Jenkins, in players like Armeo, etc. Mark, I'm ready. Go ahead.
Mark left to go get another caller.
Oh, he's muted himself and he's still talking. Oh, he left to go get another caller?
Yeah, this is the confusing
Mark?
part of all of this.
Yeah, I'm all right. You were just going on so long. I wanted to go check with our next caller.
Okay. You said you were going to talk about FlyQuest for 10 minutes straight, so I...
So you decided to talk for 10 minutes straight first?
Yeah. You know what? If you're going to get that timing, I'm going to get that timing too.
All right, well, I want Raz to interject here if there's anything, because I actually want to talk about FlyQuest Academy.
I got nothing. It's all you. I've already done my job, I
Okay,
guess.
everyone
I
get ready
love
for
these
Mark to talk.
motherfuckers. They're so fun to watch. Like, they have such good player storylines right now. Like, okay, you got Diamond and Kumo coming back into the LCS, getting their revenge. Kumo from EG was just... I said this on the dive. I'll say it again here. I didn't like watching him play when he was on EG. That wasn't it. He like... There was these games where he just wouldn't... He'd pick Jace and just not play aggressively. He took D-Shield into Volibear top and took like 100 damage throughout the whole laning phase and just farmed with Jace. He did the same thing to a GP matchup I watched once where he just like never tried to contest any of the waves or the barrels or anything. And I'm only down with flaming him now because I'm about to hype his ass up because he's so fucking different now watching him play. It's so much fun watching him play. Like, I was casting him in Academy like 2 weeks ago. I was like, oh my god, this motherfucker's nuts now. He was on Lee Sin, like queuing back in at 200 health, like just knowing ability cooldowns and stuff. He's so fucking good now, and he's nuts. Like the epitome of like why I love this team is actually the third game that they played. The Baron, I forget who it is. I think Diamond dies when they get Baron at the end of the game. They get the Baron. It's a 4v5. Enemy team goes down to take the Dragon to stop the stacking of FlyQuest Academy, and they're like, all right, standard play here. Most teams in the LCS, they're just going to go fuck off. They're going to recall with their Baron buffs. They're going to start pushing out minion waves while they wait for the recall, the respawn of the dead guy. Was Kumo do? Fucking TP's top to start pushing in the top wave 4v5 to make them respond to him. The rest of his team goes in the jungle, and they start killing people as they try and deal with the fact that, like, hey, Kumo's not respecting the fact that it's 4v5 in the map right now. Like, what is he doing? Like, that's the kind of shit I love to see because most teams just play so standard, so by the book. You're like, it's just, man, like you see some creativity, you see people taking risks. It's so nice to see. I fucking love that play. There's a bunch of plays that FlyQuest does where I'm like, man, that shit's not very smart. And you know, sometimes it doesn't work out, but they just like never back down. Like, not just because a play doesn't work out doesn't mean that they're gonna like chicken shit out of the next play. Like I think it was the second game. I can't remember. There's a time where like NXI just leaves the Dragon Pit as the Dragon's going down. They just leave Kumo in the Dragon Pit to die, and instead he kills the support. And it was like, dude, what the fuck are you doing, NXI? That wasn't smart at all. And then they're like, man, fuck it, we just lost the Dragon. They just like TP back in from behind and kill someone else. And like watching FlyQuest play is so nice. Like it's just like the players. There's so many storylines like. Triple coming over from Osh and popping off, NXI from scouting grounds and like looking like pretty terrible, honestly, in the scouting, the lock-in tournament to popping off now. Like all those things, plus the play style, the importance of teamwork. You know, like they're probably going to drop some games this weekend. They're playing against good teams, but fuck if it's not going to be fun to watch.
Well, there you go.
There we have it. I loved it.
Clip it and ship it. Mark now
Listening the
catching up
entire
on Twitch
time.
chat to see what everyone thought of his rant.
I just blacked out for a couple minutes. Ready for
No,
the last
I mean
call?
I'm excited. What are the chances FlyQuest Academy makes it to Worlds?
Zero,
Okay.
probably.
Yeah,
I mean,
So there's a 0 chance. Yeah, 0%. I
'Cause
love
I
him.
feel like that would be a great storyline. Can we engineer that somehow? Can we script it?
All right,
All right.
Miracle on 34th Street happened a long time ago. Was it 34 or 36?
Charizard, Lord Charizard, come back to us.
I'm here.
I think we all agree with you. Academy good. Keep
Yeah,
Academy.
so excited to see what's going to happen with all this. I can see FlyQuest pulling a Shaka from I think it was Spring Split.
Yeah.
The Miracle Run.
It could be great.
Charizard, first off, I want to thank you for this call. I think it was a good one, and you inspired Mark to go crazy. So, you are this week's Game Fuel Victory Caller. Thank you very much. We'll hook you up with some free Mountain Dew Game Fuel, a case of it. I'll just DM me on Discord after we're done talking, and I'll shoot you over the details on how to get that.
All right, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything you want to shout out before we take a quick break?
Just shout out to the awesome conversation. I love to see Mark go off all the time. It's great. And shout out to Alienware and Game Fuel. It's a pleasure.
Thanks so much. Sorry. Hopefully we get to see you in Texas next year. I don't know what Red's
Hopefully
plans
that'd
are,
be
but
awesome.
Yeah, hopefully they'll hand you back. All right, thanks.
See ya.
Then
All right.
comes COVID.
Speaking
Part
of Game
2.
Fuel, I just want to point out that at the start of the show, Mark had talked about how he was riding a lot of energy from the dive, but he was worried that in the second half of the show, he might get a little fatigued. And I suggested that he drink a cool, refreshing Mountain Dew Game Fuel. Clearly he has. He crushed it, literally, the drink can. And now I can't have him show it as product placement because it's been crushed in the brandings. Anyway, and look at what he was able to do with that. He was able to deliver. What is that? What's going on in the background, Mark? I just saw something. There's an animal trying to get out of your room. It's
it's a little rat.
distracting me in the middle of this. Anyway.
Be a professional.
Here I am trying to do
Escape!
This-
Escape the room!
ad read, and this creature is
can
trying
do
to
it.
escape.
You can do
Do,
it.
do your
No,
job,
it's up
Travis.
there.
It's almost 9 o'clock.
Thanks so much to Game Fuel for sponsoring the show and allowing us, even though it's 9 o'clock, to keep our energy going after long days. Mark has had, I did a stream earlier, Mark just did the dive. There's a lot of energy that we need for this show, and Mountain Dew Game Fuel delivers it. Please go to gamefuel.com/Travis, and in fact, there's a link in the description, and there's also one in the Twitch chat right now. If you go do that, you can purchase some Game Fuel of your own, and it tastes delicious. Now you've opened the door, and the cat doesn't want to go out, even though it was trying to go out this entire time.
Just go!
Oh
Be
my-
free!
Oh my god.
This is absurd.
It's not like there's anything in there. It's just the same closet.
Oh, is that the
He just doesn't
closet?
like. Yeah, cats just don't like closed doors.
Oh boy.
He's got a blankie in there that he likes. Maybe he's going for the blankie.
And we'll have to figure it out.
Ah,
see if he
well,
drags the
everyone's getting
blanket
timed
out
out.
in a
Anyway,
minute.
thank you so much, Game Fuel, for sponsoring. I apologize, Game Fuel, that your ad read got disrupted by this creature, but perhaps it helped keep people engaged. So thank you to Game Fuel for sponsoring the show. Go grab a case of Mountain Dew Game Fuel, and when you do, make sure you use code Travis at checkout so you can save 5%. We love them. If it's not available in your area of the U.S., you can use that Amazon link as well. It helps. Okay. Oh, Mint
That's it.
Gelato just ordered an Alienware laptop. Did we sell 2 Alienware computers literally during the show? My God! Please tweet at Alienware if you did. Might have sold more than that. All right, we're on our last caller. Mark's off to go grab them. Actually, Mark has already gotten them here. David, where are you calling from?
I'm also calling from Dallas, Texas. Same
You're
as
also
last-
calling from Dallas, Texas. David,
Yeah, and I'm also kind of sad that, but that's not my take.
that's
But
not
I'm
your
also
take.
concerned
Okay,
about
here I
finals.
thought for sure we'd have somebody call it with that. Well, I'm sorry that we are not going to see you in a month or so.
That's
what's-
okay. Maybe I'll pop up to New Jersey just for the hell of it.
Yeah, you should. I mean, the only time anybody can we make anti-New Jersey
Come in
jokes?
there with
Those
a
were really
picket
in vogue
sign.
for a while.
Go
I
to
don't know.
Jersey with a picket sign.
Yeah. Anyway, David, what do you want to talk about on the show?
I want to talk about roster construction, which has kind of been the theme of today's episode, anyways. So it should be pretty natural to move into. My take was a little complex, and I think that this week has shown us an interesting thing, which is that a lot of teams don't quite seem to understand the complexities of roster construction. I think that we have this tendency to hype up big names and big signings, whether they're imports or domestic, and consequently we get these teams that look really cool on paper, such as Licorice and Jose Diodo, or Sven and Mithy TSM, or that 100 Thieves roster from a few years ago, or in Europe, current G2, that
The super
actually
teams
don't
people
fit.
talk about, I
Yeah,
feel like.
yeah, but they don't actually fit very well because the players, like a super team could be constructed that would work great. The ones that are being constructed don't always work great because we over-index on names. I think the younger teams, the newer teams, do a better job at this, and that's why like Rogue and Mad Lions are doing great in Europe, and why like 100 Thieves is doing better than Cloud9 right now because they focus on the analytical fit of their players with each other rather than simply on, oh my gosh, it's perks.
Well, to be fair, they at the start of this year, 100 Thieves bought 4 players from Golden Guardian, so I don't feel like it's a thing where they like.
It's good
Oh, Mark,
together
you're muted.
from. No, I'm
yeah.
not.
Go ahead.
Who looked good from Golden Guardians?
That's true.
They bought a team with synergy.
That's true. That's true. I just called it out because it's a great decision and not one I think they shouldn't have made. But it's when we're talking about roster construction, they had a playbook ahead of them. Certainly, they should deserve credit for the Abadage stuff. So, David, what do you think actually when you talk about this? Do you think there is some like better strategy in mind? Like, are you talking about like there is a playbook that you think people should be following that they're not, or what?
So-
What actually is the right way to do it?
Kind of. So in the NBA, I don't know. I think Mark watches the NBA. I don't know about Travis. Anyways, in the NBA, there's a stat called like usage rate, basically, which more or less equates to like how much of the ball the person is holding. And I don't necessarily think we have a great analytic like that, but I think a lot of the teams that don't end up with particularly good rosters, and my mind goes to the Misfits team from 2 years ago, where kind of all the players were resource heavy, so to speak, don't necessarily think about the amount of attention or usage rate that individual stars might need. I think actually current Cloud9 struggles like a little bit like this. Like Perks kind of needs a lot of presence, but so like Sven's kind of a dominant bot laner and he needs a bit. Someone needs to watch Blabber to make sure his brain's on. You know, like there's a lot of little things like that that I think some of the younger teams are more sophisticated about looking for.
Can I take this one, Travis?
Yeah, go for it, Raz, because you've worked on the team side more recently than Mark has.
And I also know he's talking about when it comes to the NBA because I watched that shit. So usage rate for me, like it's heavily dependent on which role we're talking about here. If it's like a point guard, if it's like a Chris Paul or a Kyrie, like usage on them. If it's like a ball distributor versus somebody that just dribbles, like that kind of heavily depends. So like that feels like it's more still like a context-based thing. And also NBA's all sports. I'm just going to say all sports that I know of are far different from a game like League that resets on like possession. Like for instance, if I get 2 points on one side of the court, great. Like we can change strategies. If shit's not working out, we can just like take a timeout. With a game, if you fuck up level 1, you're versus a good team, your game could just be over. So like statistics when it comes to League is just super heavily like they rely on context. And another thing, the game changes like every 2 weeks. So like the rosters that you named, like ones on paper, C9 and G2 should work because those players have shown that they can adapt. Like Reckless has shown pretty consistently that he can adapt later on in his career, of course, like in champions that he can play, be a little bit more supportive or be like a heavy carry. And he's like the best carry in the region. And so like, especially in a game like League, you need to be able to play both sides and be flexible to the meta. And with C9, I think the example is probably like Blabber's been pretty much like in positions where his mid laners are constantly giving him resources. That I think it was a great experiment, or it was a great run to have somebody who is, by the way, just like MSI champion, fucking one of the greats of the game, and incredibly flexible. And sure, Perks has had his bad moments, but like Blabber needs to be able to play both with resources and without resources. As a person who can like give to either his solo laners or whoever, because he has like basically every lane can carry, or he can play with resources. And I think the team in Spring Split succeeded when he got all resources, and that's pretty fair. That's fine. That's fine. And he got better. I thought like one of the greatest things that I saw in Spring Split was that he could play through Perks in certain games. But then, yeah, he does have moments like these, and I think we tend to overreact. Anyways, going back to the main point, I think the NBA example is probably not the best. And I think some of the examples of like the teams who are great on paper, like the two that you mentioned, should just work well regardless. And it's like G2 is a great example of a team that will rise, and like I think they're performing really well recently. They just beat Rogue, so I think like that's a team we're probably going to be seeing at World soon. But to your point, roster building still really important. EG did a really great job at it when it came to bringing Impact, Shizuke, and Ignar. Basically everything with a pretty heavy focus in my mind, with a mid laner that the utmost freedom, because he's got a roaming support and a top laner that can kind of fill.
Yeah, I agree with everything Raz said about, especially current C9. In theory, I think should work well. So I feel like, to the caller's point though, roster construction is sometimes thought of as get big name good kind of thing. But I feel like teams can sometimes be adaptable. Like Team Liquid, for example, going from Impact to Alphari is almost as big of a change in playstyle as you could ever have in a position. And they kind of made it work in Spring Split. You know, they played around him heavily. Core JJ was top a lot more. You know, he had a lot of counter picks given to him, a lot of in-game resources given to him. I do think the idea of like resources is a good one when you are constructing a roster, but like some players can do both. I think Sven, to be clear, is someone who can do both. Like you can play Ezreal weak side, just let him fuck around. Or you could probably play through Sven in certain like laning phases. So like I think a lot of the times that teams fall apart is less, or when I say fall apart, or like don't seem to gel perfectly together, is less about the in-game, like can this player do this? Can this team figure out the resource allocation? And more about like how they actually see the game in a moment. Like, do we want to go here? Do we not want to go here? Are we down to try and make this play? Is this when we're all going to go in? Those kind of split-second moments. Because teams like EG, like Artemis was saying on the desk, they don't have that kind of natural tension that comes from people seeing the game really different. And so when they have mistakes in the game, they seemingly can get over them and fix them, or not blow up at each other because they like, this guy's going in, this guy doesn't want to go in. So I feel like that idea of view of the game is even more important than resource allocation.
Hey, you know, it's a great example, to the college point, of a team that had pretty bad roster building, like into your thing as well, which is like old Dignitas, like Dignitas of, I think it was last year, when they had Huni and Froggen.
Oh yeah.
And that one, everyone saw that shit coming from a mile away, but we were like mildly intrigued if it would actually worked out. And spoiler alert.
I think everyone was like, this will either be the worst idea or the best idea. And
it was the narrators going, it was the worst idea.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What do we think?
Well, it is relevant. That is fair.
Yeah.
Go on.
Sorry, what do we think of the second aspect to my point, which is that I think kind of the newer blood teams, maybe because they have less resources, seem to have a better understanding of how to find players that complement each other. The team that like really comes to mind on this is Mad Lions last year and this year. That was a team that I think last year was predominantly rookie talent that they had strategically plucked from a few places to build around Humanoid. Or Rogue this year, changing out Finn for Ottawamne, felt very strategic in terms of trying to take a player who needed a lot of attention and replace him with a player who you can kind of... Like, Ottawamne is very, very good at ultimate weak side, it feels like, in some of those games where you can play around Larson and not ever have to worry about him. Whereas, of course, G2 had a hole and they plugged it with Reckless. Um,
Well, Reckless is literally the best AD carry in the region.
He's great. Well, this year, would you say that's true this year?
Like
Just out of curiosity.
that's hindsight. Look, in the time in which they made the decision, they lost because like they had 2 mid laners. It happens, and they had the opportunity of getting someone who performed incredibly well internationally and was the best AD carry in the region at the time. If it doesn't work out, it's probably I'm not going to blame the player. Even if they're on different wavelengths, it's like, and also they lost the leader in my mind.
I mean, I think
regardless.
Go ahead, Russ.
But yeah, they lost a leader in my mind. There's a lot of things that like tangibles and intangibles that they needed to make up for. Even bringing in a new coach, all these things. And to your point, another thing that you made about like Lions, a lot of LEC teams, a benefit to them is that they do pick from the URLs. Like they can definitely. There are a lot of teams like Misfits right now that had some pretty like new players. Razork is another one that comes to mind. So I do think that to your original point, which is like roster building, we have great examples of teams that built a roster with a game plan in mind, and I like that.
I am of the opinion that you mentioned it's because they have less resources. I think it's partially that they have to be scrappier, but I also think it's just a matter of I kind of want to use the word entropy, probably not the right one, but like if you think about it, you have in any given year some really great players who are good and deserve to play and can get better and better and better, and those players generally are not going to end up on these top teams because the top teams are going to go to like all reliable veterans. Like your point of like G2 going with Reckless, like you whenever a team is doing really well, they are less likely to bring in new talent to create something new. And so you end up in a situation where, like, of course, like when G2 has been doing great, you're going to see so little change on that roster lineup. And so what happens is these new players that are coming in that are good, that deserve to be great and can be incredibly competitive, those are naturally going to end up on other teams. And the teams that can do the best with that are obviously going to be able to, like, who are best at finding those types of players are going to do great. But I tend to think these things are inevitable. And I think that's what we're starting to see now in the LCS.
I feel like you can think of teamwork as a wave function, and there is some level of quantum entanglement of each player's different wave functions, and then the collapse occurs upon observation when you pull them out of their environment, and you get decoherence. So I also think we're overreacting. We're saying the big teams can't fucking build rosters. It's like a couple whiffed. It's pure randomness. These two changes didn't work out, but guess what? Let's not pretend 100 Thieves ain't balling out. EG's roster isn't that fucking cheap. I don't know.
And bald-headed Caps is and Reckless in the bot lane. Back at it. We can't call them failed team if they're literally right now balling out at this very moment and playoffs haven't come by.
That's true. We just need perks with Cap and bald.
True.
Bald Caps, and then all their roster woes will fade away.
That's my thing. I think so much of what we're talking about right now will literally not matter when playoffs hit, and all of the teams that we kind of are like, oh, it's not working out. Like C9 is a great example, right? If C9, I'm just waiting till playoffs happen to see if all the concerns that we had about C9 dissipates. Because
my counterpoint to that would be we all thought that last split about LEC and what happened, but both Fnatic and G2 crashed out comparatively early, and not necessarily looking great yet.
I mean, I saw that with Fnatic happening. That team looked ridiculous. But like, with
Adam is a godsend for that team. Adam is a godsend for that team.
I was checking.
Fantastic.
I was checking Sorry, we're talking over each other. I thought you were done. All I was going to say was, to Mark's point about we're overreacting and people are spending a lot of money. Looking at the data that I had from last split, which doesn't have the new stuff, the 5 teams that are spending the most money on their LCS roster are Cloud9, TSM, Team Liquid, Evil Geniuses, and 100 Thieves. So it is a
top 5 right there, baby.
It is still too early to say like, oh yeah, you don't need to. You could be scrappy and and do well. Because it is a situation where it does seem like money is directly correlated to how well you do, unless you're CLG.
Another thing as well is expectation plays a big role into how people kind of deem this. When people have zero expectation of FlyQuest, start winning all these games, and I'm talking about the academy team. Suddenly, holy shit, they're balling out. And when people are like trashing on TSM, but they're like basically still second place if we're just taking the summer split as a whole, right? That's because people expect the world out of them. So we should just kind of remove that expectation when it comes to like how they're legitimately playing, because TSM is legitimately still playing really well. Will that translate to winning a championship? That's a little bit of a doubt for me, but like I think how we're comparing, but it's like how we're comparing these teams that are definitely in the top, the teams that we expect little from, but are performing to like a middling degree, like a middle of the pack. So if a team exceeds our expectation, I don't want us to go wild with takes, like, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Not saying yours, but I'm just saying in general, I've been seeing it.
Hey, David.
I don't know. Golden Guardians going to Worlds, winning it all, guys.
There it is. That's what I want to hear.
Licorice just comes in and, man, how bad would that double F tweet be?
Licorice coming through.
David, thanks so much for the call. Anything you want to say before we say goodbye?
Shout out to Raz for interesting counterpoints. I would love to sit down and just talk roster building all day, but unfortunately, it's probably the end of the podcast.
Yes.
I love this guy. We should award him with the Game Fuel.
Yeah, shout out Alienware, shout out Game Fuel, shout out Draft Buff.
Very good. Thanks so much, David, for the call.
Travis, I'm just saying, if we could award a second caller of the night.
You want me to reward him a second caller? David, I just direct David. Are you still here?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. At Raz's behest, I was thinking about this, and then Raz literally said it, so I felt like it's a sign. You are our second victory caller of the night.
Oh my god!
I'll have to talk to
Let's
Gamefuel
go.
about it because we don't ever do more than one. But thank you, and enjoy your case of Mountain Dew Gamefuel. Please message me on Discord. And our last caller, whose name I'm forgetting at the moment, please also message.
Charizard.
Yes, Charizard, LordxCharizard. Please also message me if you're still watching on Discord, so I can make sure you guys both have the route by which you can get your free case of Gamefuel. Okay, thank you. Goodbye, David. I'm sending you away now. You can thank Raz because he got you hooked up. Okay, that's the show. Mark Zimmerman, I'm gonna have you go second because whenever I ask you to plug stuff, you always go, "I got nothing." Blah blah blah. So you'll have Raz's whole plug to come up with what you're gonna say. And I know your temptation right now is to just say, "Well, I've got nothing." Blah blah blah. To try to own me. I see the smile on your face. I've done 181 episodes of this show with you.
I called you my ass, dude. I fucking know what you're doing. You're calling me out, saying exactly what you think I'm gonna do, so that I don't do that thing. I'm gonna say I got fucking nothing.
Okay. Well, we'll find out after Raz gives his shout outs and plugs. Raz, what do you want to promote? What do you got? What's going on?
I got fucking nothing. Look, I will say this. You know that whole joke with Mark hold it in and all that shit? Suddenly, it's real now. Me and Mark, for the past fucking few desks, we just been straight chimps on the desk like 5 seconds before the broadcast starts. And then like the moment the clock strikes 1, I say some dumb shit or like whatever. We look at each other and the camera's on us and we have to somehow keep a straight face. But the whole Mark keep it in, that's legitimately real now.
It's like, I don't know when they turn our mics on. And so like sometimes we're saying the dumbest shit right as it's like going live. I have no idea if any of it ever goes out though.
Oh, that'd be a travesty if it ever does.
Hey, we don't use that word on the show. Thank you though, Raz, for that information. Is there anything? Where can people find you? Do you want to plug anything? Where can people watch your Persona streams?
At RazLCS for my Twitter, and on streams I am Razzleplasm. RAZLEPLASM. I might change that at some point because the Razzleplasm, the plasm is dying, but you know it is what it is. I like it. It's authenticity, Travis.
You hate to see the plasm go. All right,
Sad.
Mark, what do you got for us? Where can people find you? What do you want to plug? What's going on?
PBS Space Time. That's the best shit to watch at 12 a.m. 12 p.m.
Space Time
12 a.m.
is the show?
Morning. Darkness. PBS Space Time. It's a
PBS
YouTube
Space
channel.
Time. Is it on a
This shit-
streaming service or where are you watching it?
on YouTube.
Okay. Pretty good.
It's not for you. It's for other people.
For the big brain people, not me, the dummy.
You don't really need to get it. You just gotta sit there and lean back and just listen to these smart people say shit.
Is this like a Space Gummies thing? I know Captain Flower's always talking about Space Gummies. I feel like that's what people are going to think you're talking about when you say this. Okay.
No.
He's gonna need a sponsorship at that one at some point.
We're talking about quantum field theory here, Travis.
One of the same.
Anyway, thanks, Mark, for being here. Thank you, Raz, for being here. For me, I've got some cool content coming out, as always. Run It this week is about who is actually good as we enter into the last round robin, looking at the teams that are in the top 5 and perhaps different ways to look at their strengths right now. Shout out to Rift Reaction. Last week we had Ender on, and that was sick. It was great to have him talk about LEC. I feel like this week we're going to talk about the LCS stuff, but that's on Spotify, and we love Spotify and Rift Reactions. Cool show that I get to do. It's only we've been pushing 40 minutes lately, but normally we try to keep it around the 35-minute mark. So if you want something nice and easy to listen to that complements this on your ride or drive or walk, or I don't know, any number of different things that you can do while you're listening to something, listen to Rift Reaction on Spotify. Emily Rand and I, Emily's so smart, and she just carries me on that show. Anyway, thanks so much, everyone. This has been Hotline League episode... What?
Raz's hat. It's the classic sun hat.
There we go.
Are you wearing that because the caller just now suggested that Mark cares about the NBA and you had not mentioned, or that your name was not mentioned in that? You need to. It's like
I was offended. I was honestly offended.
And then you got them victory caller, like a double victory caller. So you, by the end of it, they'd really changed your mind.
A lot of his points were pretty bad, or at least his supporting evidence. But you know what? The conversation was still civil. So we give him respect.
Hotline League episode 181. Thanks, everyone. We stream this every week at 7 p.m. Pacific on Twitch. It's available on your favorite audio platform. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel if you have not already, and we'll catch you next week.